Welcome to Got Tier Fanfiction. Today I'm gonna continue the series What If Naruto Saved the Uchiha from the Massacre Part 2. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Sasuke, Shikamaru, Choji, and Hinata followed Choza up the stairs of one of the taller buildings near the military police headquarters. Walking, they observed plenty of leaf shinobi running around doing different things, carrying supplies, setting up equipment and so on. It seemed they were getting ready for some big business. Choza opened a door at the top of the stairs. They went into a huge area with windows overlooking the headquarters. "Have you managed to contact the Hokage?" Sasuke heard someone inquire. He peered to see a dark-haired man who looked like an older and more rugged Shikamaru and another, a blonde who was like an adult, male version of Ino Yamanaka. The second shook his head. "I tried, but someone is blocking my jutsu. No one in the vicinity will be able to contact telepathically. If I had to guess, it's a member of my clan. There are few over the years who joined the Anbu at a young age and then never went home." It does offer a problem then," the one who looked like Shikamaru said, before he saw Choza and the children in his peripheral vision. "What's all this about?" Choza stepped aside and beckoned the students in. "I think you should hear it from them, Shikaku." The four children looked at each other. They didn't know where to begin. "Jinchuriki." Shikamaru piped up. "What's that, Dad?" "Huh?" Shikaku asked as he dropped on his knees in front of his son. "Where'd you pick up that word?" "We heard the Hokage talking to someone." Sasuke answered for them all. "They called Naruto a Jinchuriki." The elder Nara sighed and rubbed the back of his head. "I see. Then there's no point in keeping things under wraps anymore, at least where you four are concerned." "What are you keeping quiet about?" inquired Hinata, nervously putting a hand to her mouth. "The day Naruto Uzumaki was born, the third Hokage made a decree," Shikaku said. "One that wouldn't let you talk about how he was born." "Why would he do that?" Shikamaru said. "Did anything unusual happen when he was born?" "You could say that," Shikaku said. "Well, you see, Naruto was born the day the nine-tailed fox attacked the village." The four children fell silent, trying to understand what this meant. "That sounds so bad luck," Choji eventually managed to utter. Sasuke remarked, "But what does that have to do with anything? I'm sure there were any number of children born that day." "That is true," said Shikaku. "But something happened to Naruto that made him unique. You may have heard that the fourth Hokage sacrificed himself to be able to beat the Nine Tails. But it was not that simple. A tailed beast is not something that is simply beat, it has to be sealed into something, or more typically someone. On that day the someone was Naruto." Sasuke looked wide-eyed and quiet at the discovery. He didn't quite know what it meant to have a tailed beast sealed inside of someone, but even in his juvenile ignorance, it seemed momentous. It has to be, if the grown-ups had been hiding it from them. "Well, a Jinchuriki is a person who has a tailed beast sealed inside," Shikamaru said. "Yeah," Shikaku affirmed. "And because of that they are often suspicious or distrustful of them, and many ignorant people will see them and the beast as one and the same. For that reason Jinchuriki often end up as social outcasts. Lord Hokage wanted to save him from that through his decree in the hopes that other children would be able to approach him without fear." "Well, that didn't go so well," said Sasuke. "All the kids just copy their parents and treat him exactly the same way." "You make a point," said Shikaku. "I always thought communication was a better way of solving those kinds of things, but to be fair to Lord Hokage, it was never going to be an easy fix. I imagine there were other factors that the rest of us weren't aware of that were complicating things as well. But now things are how they are. What does it mean for you four?" "It doesn't change a thing," Sasuke said for all of them. Itachi stood at the entrance to what had been his father's, and now his mother's, the office of the chief of the military police. Inside, the Hokage was talking to Naruto. Itachi observed them and questions swirled around in his thoughts. Why had his mother gone so far for the boy? But where was Sasuke in all this? And what would Danzo go to do to get his hands on the Nine Tails? He spotted Makoto coming from the corner of his eye. "Anything new, mother?" "A mob is gathering outside," replied the new police chief. "Judging from their signs and shouting, it sounds like they believe we're holding the Hokage hostage." "That's Danzo's game," Itachi remarked. "He hopes to turn the people against the Uchiha by spreading tales about us holding Lord Hokage hostage. Eventually someone's hand will be forced, and in the commotion that follows Danzo may swoop in and seize Naruto for himself." "Yes," Makoto replied. "And who knows what other opportunities will come up that he can take advantage of. The question now is, how do we respond?" Itachi said, We can't do it alone. No matter what we do, we must make it plain to everyone that we follow Lord Hokage's lead. Then we'll have to wait, Makoto said, leaning forward to see the Hokage and Naruto better through her office door. I hope he's gonna be alright. Mother, may I ask you something in private? Itachi said. Makoto looked at her kid and was silent for a minute. Sure, she answered finally, guiding Itachi to a secluded stairwell. What is on your mind? Makoto began when they were alone. Why do you care so much about protecting Naruto? Itachi inquired. What do you mean, Itachi? Makoto asked. A solitary, lone youngster, the son of my buddy no less, comes to my doorway pleading for my help. What was I to do? I don't mean that, Itachi said. It's just, you've been so adamant about it. Makoto sighed with frustration. What are you trying to say, Itachi? Do you know about Naruto's history? He inquired. That he is the son of Kushina and Minato, Makoto said. Itachi nodded his head. She told you then. Lord Hokage thought she might have told a friend or two, even if her pregnancy was to be a secret. It wasn't deliberate or anything, we just happened to bump into each other by coincidence, Makoto said. I was out running some errands with Sasuke, who was only a few months old at that point. I hadn't seen her in years, didn't even know she was pregnant. We exchanged some pleasantries. She said she wanted for Sasuke and her son to be friends, and I walked away thinking about how nice that would be, and that it would give us a chance to reconnect. I didn't realize that this would be the last time I saw her, or that she would die that very night. I understand, said Itachi. That must have been very difficult for you. Makoto looked at the floor for a bit and said nothing. Finally she looked up at Itachi, who saw the quiet pain in her eyes. I went to see him in hospital after. Naruto, I mean. He was just so much like Minato. The eyes, the hair. But I saw Kushina too. In the shape of his face and the way he'd pine for the nurse's attention. It broke my heart. But you never allowed yourself to be a part of his life, Itachi remarked. I told myself I had to focus on raising you and Sasuke and supporting your father, Makoto said. But looking back, I think I was also trying to protect myself from the pain, from being reminded of Kushina. She bit her lip, took a long breath, continued. But then Sasuke made friends with him, like she wanted. And when Sasuke brought him to our house, Naruto reminded me so much of his mother. The way he carried himself, the way he talked, all of it was Kushina. I started to think that maybe I was wrong to stay out of his life. And today happens. He shows up at our house, followed by some mysterious enemy. I realized that if our roles had been reversed, if your father and I had been the ones to die that terrible day, that Kushina would have done everything in her power to make sure that you and Sasuke were taken care of. The Uchiha matriarch tightened her hand, a look of determination rising up in her eyes. I'll look after that boy, like I would for you or your brother. I owe Kushina at least that much. Then, Itachi started and trailed off. Listen, mother. What I'm about to tell you, it's sensitive information. Don't tell anybody. What is it, Itachi? Makoto inquired, immediately donning her worried mom expression. Shisui and I were heading out on a mission before this mess started, Itachi remarked. It has the potential to shed more light on the attack of the Nine Tails. We could find out more about the deaths of the 4th Hokage and Kushina Uzumaki. Why are you telling me this? Makoto asked. Mother, would you like to join us? Itachi inquired. Of course it would have to be approved by Lord Hokage, but perhaps it will be an opportunity for you to find some closure. Makoto thought for a bit, taking a few slow, deep breaths. I think I'd like to do that. Sasuke leaned against the glass, watching the mob gathered around the military police headquarters. All day it had been growing, more people, more signs, more torches and pitchforks. The opening of the door to the room behind him took him away from the sight. Did you call for me, sir? Jun Uchiha said as she arrived, turning to the table where Shikaku, Inoichi and Choza were seated. Yeah, the Nara clan head responded. You're being pulled out of the front lines. The anti-Uchiha attitude is rising, and I can't have you falling to a crowd. Oh, thanks, sir, Jun said. What will I do instead? Shikaku pointed at Sasuke and then at Shikamaru, Choji and Hinata, who were sitting in a corner. Look after them. Stupid kids got caught up in this and I can't send them home with things heating up the way they're out there. Jun nodded in reply. As you say, sir. She glanced at the three in the corner, then at the Uchiha lad by the window. What, Sasuke, what are you doing here? That's a long story, said Choza. Let's just say, for all the same reasons we don't want you out there, it's even truer for him. Thank you, Lord Shikaku, Jun said with a bow. You are a good man. I told you, I'm no lord, Shikaku answered. Right, Jun answered, wincing. She stopped for a bit and then went to sit with the three children in the corner and made modest small talk with them. Sasuke turned back to the window and watched the gathering below. Surprisingly to see, it was not just growing, it was acting. People were starting to break past the line of Anbu separating them from the headquarters, racing to the main doors and banging on them. The Anbu didn't seem to care at all about this happened. Sasuke managed to shake off his amazement. Something's going on out there. Shikaku mumbled. He got up from his chair and walked over to the window. What the hell is Danzo playing at? Choza, let's get out there and do some crowd control. If that mob gets in there it'll be a carnage. Okay. Choza reached for his stick, propped against the wall. Don't rush so much, Sasuke heard a voice. He looked at the door and saw someone standing there. He was resting against the doorframe, head full of spiky white silver hair, with a mask over his lower face, and a leaf headband pulled down over his left eye. Kakashi, Shikaku greeted the guy. Lord Hokage said you might be coming. Whatever you've been doing, I assume it has to do with what's been going on here. The second shinobi nodded, reaching behind him, at something hidden behind the doorframe. He dragged a man out, pulled him into the middle of the room and pushed him down to his knees. He had an Anbu cloak on, the mask was off, and the manner he carried himself was out of the ordinary. It seemed as if he were in some sort of stupor. I've been looking into Danzo on Lord Hokage's orders, Kakashi revealed. And, well, I think you should hear what he has to say. Shikaku took in the man on the floor before him. Is he under a genjutsu? Kakashi nodded in answer. Danzo's men bear a cursed mark on their tongues, one that paralyzes them should they try to reveal their master's secrets. He removed his headband from over his eye, displaying a Sharingan to Sasuke's horror and surprise. Hopefully the genjutsu can bypass the curse mark. Shikaku knelt down in front of the caught Anbu. What does Danzo want? To protect the village, was the answer. No problem, responded Shikaku, but what is he going to do about it? Whatever takes, muttered out the trapped Anbu. Kakashi sank to his knees next Shikaku. Is Danzo trying to catch Naruto Uzumaki? Yee. The Anbu managed to say before he started convulsing. His torso was covered with a series of black lines from his mouth. He dropped to the floor, shivering now and again. Your genjutsu theory was a bust, said Shikaku, rising to his feet. But that was enough for me. The curse mark wouldn't have activated if Danzo was being a perfect little angel. He turned around to stare out the window at the crowd encircling the military police headquarters. We have to find a way to contact Lord Hokage and stop Danzo. How? Asked Inoichi. With my telepathy being jammed, there's no way we can get in contact with anyone inside the HQ without alerting Danzo. Shikaku faced the room again. Don't worry, I have a plan. What are you going to do? Kakashi asked Shikaku as he used his Sharingan again to put the root member under a genjutsu, knocking him out for good. Shikaku walked over to the three children sitting in the corner and knelt in front of the Hyuga girl. You're Hinata, right? The child was trembling so violently that she could only nod in reply. Can you use your Byakugan? Shikaku questioned. Said Hinata, nodding again. Good, then I want to ask you to do something very important for me, remarked Shikaku. You think you can do that? Hinata blushed, playing with her fingers. Will it help Naruto? Will. Shikaku grinned. You're worried about that? Yeah, it's going to assist Naruto, but it's going to benefit the rest of us a lot too. Hinata nodded. I'll do it. Then follow me, Shikaku said, getting to his feet and walking to the center of the room. Inoichi, come here. What do you want? The Yamanaka clan head inquired as he approached his old teammate. Your telepathy can't be jammed in physical contact with the receiver, can it? Shikaku said. That's right, Inoichi said. That doesn't help me. We wouldn't need to use telepathy if we could touch anyone of the headquarters. Shikaku shook his head. You don't connect to anyone in there, you connect two people in here. He pointed to Hinata and Kakashi. So, what's the plan? Inquired Kakashi. Someone down there is keeping Inoichi from getting in touch with the Hokage, Shikaku said. But with the Byakugan, we could isolate the person jamming his telepathy. He gazed down at Hinata. You think you can handle that? The young Hyuga nodded in agreement. Then Inoichi can relay that information to you, Kakashi, Shikaku added. And you can get rid of them. Then let's go, Kakashi said. He stepped up and stood next to Hinata. Inoichi placed a hand on their heads. Byakugan, Hinata muttered, unleashing her Kekai Genkai. Kakashi closed his eyes and started seeing via Hinata's eyes with Inoichi. That was strange. Like gazing through a Sharingan, but sharper and broader, with a higher level of clarity and detail. But Hinata was in the driver's seat, adjusting her attention to various portions of the mob surrounding the military police headquarters. What am I looking for? Hinata asked. I'm going to use my telepathy technique, Inoichi announced. When I do, whoever it is that's blocking it down there will block it with their own jutsu. You should see their chakra flare up. Alright, Hinata responded. Here I go, Inoichi said, and Hinata began surveying the crowd. She lingered on one figure, the blue lights of their chakra network springing to life. Less than BR, greater than less than BR, greater than. I think I have it, Hinata said. Got it, Kakashi said, pulling away from Inoichi's touch, and dashing out of the room. Wait, said Hinata. The person next to them, there's something wrong with them. It's like portions of their body aren't theirs. Kakashi didn't hear her as he vaulted off the roof of the building, heading down to the throng below. We'll have to deal with that later, stated Shikaku. You did good, Hinata, but you need to stay here now, okay? The Hyuga girl nodded in reply. Jun, stay here with the kids, Shikaku said. Keep them from getting into trouble. Yes sir, the Uchiha woman said. Inoichi, get a hold of Lord Hokage as soon as you can, we're going to have to make this quick, the Nara clan head added. Choza, you and I are going to do some crowd control. The head of the Akamichi clan rose up and picked up his staff. Right, let's do this. Itachi sat in his mother's office, watching Naruto off in the corner. The youngster squirmed, shifting his weight back and forth as he sat. I'm sorry, said Naruto. Sorry, Itachi inquired. For what? For all this trouble, Naruto answered. I just wish I knew why all these people keep coming after me, you know. Hearing this, Itachi sighed. He could feel Naruto's pain. He was just a kid, he shouldn't have to go through this. But there was no denying that Naruto was a Jinchuriki, and that meant something. Danzo was incorrect about so many things, but he was right on one. Naruto wasn't a youngster who could be treated normally. But that was different than treating him like monster or weapon. Listen, Naruto, Itachi remarked. You don't have to say sorry, we're all in this because we want to be. The Uzumaki child gazed up at the Uchiha clan head, his words shocking him. But then, Itachi interrupted, if you really are sorry, then the greatest way for you to apologize is to get stronger, so we can depend on you rather than vice versa. Naruto stopped, absorbing what Itachi had spoken. Then he grinned. That goes without saying. If I'm going to be Hokage, I've got to get strong, you know. Itachi stared at the grin on the boy's face for a moment. Very well, I'll be watching you. But it was the sound of the door opening that attracted Itachi's attention. The Hokage was standing in the doorway. Something happened? Itachi inquired. The Hokage nodded back. I have to go, Naruto, Itachi replied, getting up. Stay here, he added before leaving the office. When the door was closed behind him, he asked, anything happen? The Hokage nodded. Yes, Inoichi has reached out to me. It is now time for us to confront Danzo. What about Naruto? Itachi said. The Hokage will be here to protect him. Your mother will stay here. The Hokage looked over to Makoto, who was waiting, resting against a nearby wall. Let's go then, Itachi said. The Hokage bowed and turned, heading for the front exit of the military police headquarters. Itachi followed them, and they headed to the doors, which were currently being kept closed by members of the military police as citizens from the rabble outside tried to force them open. You can stop now, remarked the Hokage in a soothing, paternal sort of voice. The policemen halted and looked at the Hokage with surprise. The leader of the community stepped past them, opening the door to the outdoors and walking through the gathering of civilians as they separated for him. Following, Itachi looked at the expressions of the mob around him, all surprised to see the Hokage walk out of his own power. The crowd parted to see Danzo surrounded by a sea of root members, and the citizens who had been able to make it through to the front door from the ones still standing around the outer border. Your man has killed my favorite Yamanaka, Hiruzen, it's not going to be easy to replace him. Danzo stated, referring to Kakashi, who stood close with his hand through a root member's chest, most likely having pierced it with his lightning blade. Stop this, Danzo, ordered the Hokage. Stand down and surrender, or I'll have to take care of you myself. Danzo was silent for a bit, then started shouting. The Hokage is not himself, the Uchiha must have put him under a genjutsu. Men, stop the Hokage before the Uchiha use him to take over the village. Suddenly, the root members around Danzo, possibly in the 20s, began to charge at the Hokage. Itachi looked back at the civilians trying to push their way inside the headquarters. They exchanged bewildered and hesitant expressions as they faced the current predicament in front of them. "Lord Hokage," Itachi shouted. "We must be off." The professor smiled his answer, "Not up to now." Suddenly, Choza Akamichi emerged overhead, towering many stories above the surrounding buildings. His arm stretched out and produced a large shadow across the space. Then the shadow became solid black as tendrils of darkness began to uncoil from within it. "What is this?" Itachi said as the tendrils began to wrap around the different root members, raising them up and taking them away. "An Ino Shika Chokombo," the Hokage stated. Shikaku expands the range of his techniques using Choza's massive shadow as a base, while Inoichi uses his sensory and telepathic abilities to allow them to target enemies that would otherwise be out their line of sight. The village is stronger than the sum of its clans, and the Ino Shika Cho is an excellent example of that. Soon the root members were cleared from the area, held down by solid shadows that acted as a barrier to keep the rabble at away. The Hokage looked over at the civilians by the entryway. He smiled at them, a kindly grandfather's warm smile. "Please, go inside. The police will take care of you." The citizens, staring at the village chief in astonishment, slowly began to walk into the headquarters, guided in by the Uchiha clan members that only moments ago were barricading the doors against them. Now there was only Danzo, Kakashi, Itachi and the Hokage in front of the headquarters. "Guess I'll have to even things out a bit," Danzo said, and then he was gone with the body flicker technique. He was fast, but not as fast as Shisui was. Itachi could hardly follow him with his Sharingan. "Kakashi, look out!" screamed the Uchiha. The copy ninja spun, pulling a lightning blade as Danzo charged. "Too slow," the root commander said, forging a sword of wind chakra around a kunai. The elemental weakness of the lightning blade overwhelmed Kakashi, and upon contact with the blade, his technique was instantly crushed. The Anbu member wrenched out of the line of the blow before leaping backwards to land beside Itachi and the Hokage. "Are you all right?" Itachi asked his mentor. "Yeah," Kakashi said, blood dripping from his arm and the ends of his fingers. "Good thing I had the Sharingan, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to dodge the worst of it. Probably would have lost my arm. Though, I can't say that I expected him to have a Sharingan of his own." Danzo scowled at the Hokage and the two Anbu men, that red eye gazing at them from between the bandages that usually concealed it. "Did you kill Kagami then, Danzo?" said the Hokage. "No," said the root's leader. "But I felt the strength of his eyes was not yet needed, so I stole one of them from his corpse. Everything I do is for the sake of the town." Sarutobi scowled in reply. "Why do you think it is necessary for the village to desecrate the bodies of dear friends?" "You don't understand, Hiruzen," Danzo said. "You've always been naturally gifted, a person who earned the title, God of Shinobi, almost as a matter of course. But for the rest of us it is necessary to find strength from whatever source we can. Besides, one of your favorite Anbu is no different to me." The Hokage's countenance betrayed a sorrowful expression. "That was a different story, and you know it. He received it as a parting gift from a dying comrade, not stole it from a friend that had already gone cold. You've always been one to go too far, Danzo, and I've spent too much time letting you do so. But that changes now." The professor peeled off his Hokage robes, revealing the military police armor he was wearing beneath. "I'm doing this, Danzo." The root leader took one of his arms free from his robes to show a number of metal braces with seals etched into them. "It is time to display the lengths I have gone to match you, Hiruzen," he stated as he started to undo the bolts on the bracing, letting them fall to the ground with heavy clangs. "Shadow Clone Jutsu!" screamed the Hokage, two duplicates of him popping out in puffs of smoke and running to wider positions on either side of him. "Water Style! Cutting Current!" the original yelled as a powerful focused torrent of water shot out of his mouth. Danzo countered by producing an earthen wall that blocked the water attack. "Earth Style! Mud Wall!" The Hokage continued his water jutsu as he made a quick sequence of hand gestures and a burst of electricity ran through it, destroying the mud wall on the other end. Danzo couldn't move, his palm blocking the suddenly unhindered assault. Now in their positions, the two shadow clones began to perform a sequence of identical hand signs. "Earth Style! Great Barrier Jutsu!" They both shouted, slamming their palms to the ground. Great walls of earth rose from them, twisting to meet each other on the other side of Danzo, enclosing him on three sides. The original finished his water jutsu and the copies started to prepare their own techniques. The one at the Hokage's left exclaimed, "Fire Style! Grand Fireball Jutsu!" and sent the more powerful version of the normal fireball jutsu toward Danzo. Wind style. Air bullet jutsu. The other clone shouted, releasing a huge burst of wind chakra from his fists. The two attacks collided, and Danzo was consumed in a large fire. The earth barrier was like an open furnace, focusing the already strong flames into a smaller region. At the same time, it was a kind of chimney, too, guiding the fire upward into the sky, away from people and buildings nearby. For one glorious second, there was a column of fire above the area, almost as tall as Choza in his supersized form. Itachi looked on, eyes wide. He knew the Hokage were powerful, but he didn't realize just how powerful. This wasn't simply a show of power, it was the finest display of elemental ninjutsu Itachi had ever witnessed. He recalled that, before the Uchiha clan began preparing the revolution, as unhappiness grew amongst their ranks, certain members would argue that Itachi's father, Fugaku, had unfairly been passed over for the role of fourth Hokage. But Fugaku Uchiha had never been at this level. "This is a fight beyond us for now," Kakashi said. "The best thing we can do right now is wait and watch for an opportunity to strike." "Yeah." Itachi nodded, watching the discussion with his Sharingan. The flames died down, and Danzo was still standing, untouched. "You've lost a step, Hiruzen," the village elder stated. "If you'd have been in your prime, you'd have used more powerful jutsu for that fire-wind combo, and an extra pair of shadow clones to make the earth-style barrier without having to waste time switching between techniques." The bandages around his bound arm slipped off, revealing pale white, unnatural-looking skin and a number of Sharingan embedded in his flesh. "Maybe now I can finally catch up with you." "What did you do, Danzo?" the Hokage said. "Where'd you get those?" "I didn't kill nobody for them," the root leader said. "They're clones, shadows of the actual thing with almost any of its powers." Hokage started, "So twisted of an experiment. This must have been the creation of a mind as twisted as Orochimaru's. Before he was exiled from the village, you were assisting him in his inhuman experiments, weren't you?" "Like I said," Danzo said, "most of us have to find strength where we can, wherever it comes from." Itachi stared at the Sharingan-studded arm, his stomach turning at the sight of it. Then he saw that one of the eyes, the one on Danzo's hand, was closed tight. "Using Izanagi," screamed the Uchiha clan head. Kakashi questioned, "What's that?" "It's a forbidden jutsu of the Uchiha clan," explained Itachi. "It is an illusionary jutsu that is cast on reality itself, allowing the user to manipulate reality at will for a limited period of time, at the cost of sealing one of their Sharingan forever." "I understand," said the Hokage. "And those cloned Sharingan were implanted in his arm so he could use such a powerful technique without the usual drawbacks. That will be hard to get around." The professor bit his thumb, drawing blood before placing the bleeding tip to the palm of his other hand. "Summoning jutsu," he cried, doing the hand signs, and slamming his palms on the earth. "Monkey King Enma." Out of the smoke came a gigantic white-haired ape, muscle-bound and taller than any man. "What is it, Sarutobi?" it inquired, peeking out from under the leaf headband it wore. "It's been so long since you last called me." Is that Danzo?" "Yes," the Hokage said. "Things have gone from bad to worse. We need to beat him." The Monkey King laughed. "Ha! Finally. That man is the only person I've ever wanted to tear down more than that brat Orochimaru." Hokage took a big breath. "Maybe you are right. I have been too willing to turn a blind eye to his misdeeds, it seems." The god of shinobi's visage darkened. "Come on, Enma, change it." "Right," the Monkey King said, turning into a staff and soaring into the Hokage's grasp. The professor charged at his old colleague, sword raised. Sasuke looked out the window and saw a big pillar of flame rising up into the sky. He raised his hands to hide his face from the heat and brightness it was emitting. "What's down there?" he questioned. "We need to see if Naruto's okay." "You heard Lord Shikaku," Jun remarked, standing at the door. "You kids stay here, safe." "But," Sasuke started. "You aren't going anywhere, Sasuke," Jun stated with force. "It would be disobedience of the Jonin commander, and I couldn't face Lord Itachi if something happened to you." The young Uchiha boy pouted and stomped back to his fellow academy students. Shikamaru was sitting with his back against the wall, eyes shut, hands clasped behind his head. "Take it easy, Sasuke. We figured out what's wrong with Naruto. Now the grown-ups are going to handle whatever it is that we fell into." Sasuke stared hard at the Nara youngster. "That's not good enough." "What? You want to go out there?" Shikamaru inquired, opening his eyes and giving Sasuke a bewildered look. "You're crazy, man." Sasuke looked at his classmate, his lips curling slowly into a scowl. voicing his displeasure without saying a word. Fine, Shikamaru responded sitting up. Choji, assist me out. How? Queried the Akamichi boy. Just be prepared, Shikamaru responded. Hinata averted her sight to the corner of the room and nervously played with her fingers. Are you sure? You should really be doing this? No, Shikamaru said. But this one ain't gonna give it a rest. He jabbed a finger in Sasuke's direction. Honestly, I don't know if lending him a hand will be more of a hassle than not. He turned back over his shoulder at Jun. Hey, can you give us a hand? The Uchiha walked over from where she sat by the door and knelt down beside the youngsters. What's the matter? So you can stay still for a moment, Shikamaru said, making a hand sign. Shadow Possession Jutsu. His shadow darkened, stretching out, joining with Jun's. She tried to pull away, but the Nara boy's method had her frozen. Shikamaru grimaced. Hurry up, Sasuke. I can't hang on anywhere near as long as my dad. Right. Sasuke said, who jumped up and started sprinting for the door. He could already see Shikamaru's jutsu beginning to buckle. Choji! Screamed Shikamaru. Understood, said the Akamichi boy. Partial expansion jutsu. His palm instantly swelled several times in size as he put it on top of Jun, pinning her just as Shikamaru's shadow possession jutsu shattered. Sasuke ran. He didn't look back as he rounded the corner out the doorway and into the hall. He ran and ran and ran. He didn't know what he was running to, or what he would do when he got there. But he knew he had to hurry. In his heart he knew he could not let the world go by him. He didn't consider how long his friends could keep his clanswoman down. Just keep her down, Choji, replied Shikamaru. Sure thing, said the Akamichi, still pressing down on Jun. Are you certain this was the right thing to do? Hinata inquired. No, but, Shikamaru said, it is what it is. It sucks but it is what it is. Jun tilted her head to Shikamaru's. What do you believe you're going to do? Shikamaru shrugged his shoulders. You'll have to ask Sasuke. Jun just sighed. I'll have to apologize to your fathers for this. What do you mean? Choji said. The young Uchiha woman blinked, and activated her Sharingan, their two tomos spinning in her red irises as the force within her eyes came to life. She shot a glance over at Shikamaru and when their eyes locked, he fell under her genjutsu. Shikamaru! Choji cried, seeing his companion drop to the ground. He looked at the Uchiha under his fingers, and fell into her trap too. Jun was released as his hand got back to its usual size and he lost consciousness. The Uchiha stood and gazed at Hinata, assessing her for a second. I'm sorry, she stated with a sigh before genjutsuing her. The Hyuga girl fell to the floor with her classmates. Jun turned and raced from the room, following Sasuke. Hiruzen Sarutobi saw an opening and struck Danzo's neck with his stick. The Hokage twirled his weapon behind his back as the leader of the Root recoiled, swinging it around to strike the other side of Danzo's neck, throwing him to the ground. The Monkey King, Enma, went back to his real form, grabbed Danzo by the back of his robe and tossed him over his shoulder, smashing the old man into the earth-style wall the Hokage had made earlier in the battle. Danzo's assault was so powerful that blasted off the soot and burnt dirt residue left over from the enormous fire-wind combo attack. The Sharingan eye, another copy of it, closed forever and vanished, leaving an impression of the broken body of the Root leader in the dirt. Danzo reappeared nearby. It was the third time the Hokage had delivered a fatal blow to his lifelong companion, and the third time Danzo had made use of his reality-bending powers to come back from the grave, as powerful as he had been when the conflict began. All the while Itachi had watched it all with the careful eye of the Sharingan. The Hokage was the strongest, that much was evident. In this short bout he displayed extraordinary mastery in all shinobi arts. Ninjutsu, taijutsu, genjutsu, weapons, tactics, the professor had not only mastered all of them to a high level, but was also able to fluidly combine all of them into a fighting style that Itachi could see no evident weakness in. Some opponents may have been somewhat faster or stronger or more skilled in a certain arena, but Sarutobi would always have something else to fall back on, an arsenal so broad he could exploit any deficiency. But watching Hiruzen Sarutobi in the full swing of battle, Itachi could see why one would label him a god of shinobi. But the third Hokage was a human creature as well, one who had seen many years. The average shinobi may not have seen it, but Itachi's keen eyes could. As the duel went, Sarutobi was slowing, plainly taxing his stamina and chakra reserves with his attempts. The Hokage had stopped using elemental jutsu on that scale, and had dispersed his shadow clones after his magnificent exhibition of elemental jutsu at the beginning of the conflict. Instead he was using his taijutsu and summon, apparently hoping to conserve his chakra. Maybe when he was a kid the Hokage could have kept up the pace, but now he couldn't push himself so hard without burning himself out. But that couldn't be said about Danzo. The head of Root was the same age as the Hokage, albeit he lacked the same aura of decline, or at least none that Itachi could tell. He had, as it were, preserved a certain youthful vigor which had defied the ravages of age. His overall skill level was high, higher than Itachi and Kakashi's at this juncture, but not on the same plane as the Hokage's. But the more the conflict continued the less it mattered. The Hokage was slowing, Danzo was holding, both from his own stamina, and his use of Izanagi to reset himself to a previous state after each loss. On paper the difference between them should have been large enough to make Hiruzen Sarutobi the clear favorite, but in reality that gap was decreasing as the bout wore on. "Do you see a gap yet?" Itachi asked his Anbu mentor. "Not yet," Kakashi said as he closed his right eye and focused his Sharingan on the fight. Itachi watched the Hokage and Danzo continue their battle. "Are you beginning to formulate a plan?" "The start of one," Kakashi said. "If we try to fight head on here, we'll get brushed aside. We need to hit hard and fast with our most powerful technique when we find a good moment." Itachi thought of his freshly obtained Mangekyo Sharingan. It was no question more powerful than anything else in his arsenal, but he still didn't have a good hold on it. He had utilized the Tsukuyomi Genjutsu on Tekka but still had no clue as to the full scope of its skills. He was confident he possessed a second technique. He could feel it in the back of his mind every time he triggered his Mangekyo, but it was even more of an unknown than the Tsukuyomi at this point. But it made things tricky for Itachi, because he knew that, whatever he didn't know, he was sure nothing else he possessed was powerful enough. "Kakashi, have a technique in mind?" Itachi asked. "My lightning blade would be useless here. Danzo has proven that he can counter it," Kakashi remarked. "One new thing I have worked out recently, but I am still not used to wielding it, and in all honesty I will likely be left worthless and exposed after." Itachi nodded, wondering what Kakashi had up his sleeve. As he did so the Hokage made a hand sign detonating a paper bomb he had somehow managed to put on Danzo's leg during a taijutsu exchange. Itachi was once again amazed by the talent of the village chief, and Danzo undid the damage with Izanagi again. "We need to find something fast," Itachi said. "The longer this drags on, the more it benefits Danzo." "Yeah," Kakashi answered. "Kakashi, Itachi," the Uchiha heard in his mind. "Inoichi, is that you?" Kakashi said. "Yes," the voice replied in Itachi's head. "Long story short, Sasuke Uchiha is here and he's coming at you." "My brother?" inquired Itachi. "What the hell is he doing here?" "Long story like I said," Inoichi said. "Jun Uchiha is trying to get him, but you must make sure he doesn't get caught in the crossfire." Itachi began to look about, attempting to see if he could find any sign of his little brother. "Where is he?" Inoichi said. "I only managed to pick him out from the others. He should be coming to you soon." "Shit," Itachi muttered to himself. He found Sasuke with yet another scan, on top of the Earth-style wall the Hokage had made, opposite of Danzo and Hiruzen's combat from Itachi. "Sasuke!" Itachi screamed, and took off at a sprint, planning to plow through the melee to get to his little brother. The Hokage slammed his staff against Danzo's chest and started to lengthen it, before turning away from the Uchiha as he ran towards them and looked back at Sasuke. The magically growing weapon separated the two elder shinobi and gave Itachi a free runway. But even as Danzo was driven back by the adamantine staff, he had his own intentions. "You should be more careful in guarding your weaknesses, Itachi," the Root commander remarked, hands forming a series of gestures. "Wind style. Vacuum bullet," he shouted, sending a volley of blasts of wind at Sasuke. In his thoughts he could see his dear younger brother being torn apart by the jutsu. But his true eyes saw that was not the case. Jun Uchiha hopped up behind the barrier, threw her arms around Sasuke and tackled him to the ground. The wind's bullets shot through the spot where Sasuke had fallen. Jun was barely a second behind, and one of the missiles hit her right knee, breaking it and cutting the bottom half of her leg. But the Uchiha woman didn't cry in pain as they hit the ground. She gritted her teeth and forced herself forward with her hands draping her body over Sasuke to shield him. Itachi turned around and stood between his clan members and Danzo. "Fire style. Fireball jutsu," he cried, hurling the Uchiha clan's hallmark attack at the old man. The Root leader dodged, getting out of the way of the ball of flame, then bearing down on Itachi with a wind sword. However, before he could get close, the extended adamantine staff of the Hokage came into the picture, and hit Danzo in the chest, sending him into the earthen wall. The dust cleared and for a moment they could see the elder's damaged body before Izanagi made it disappear, restoring Danzo to a healthy and whole state. The Hokage's staff returned to its usual length. Danzo, I will not allow you to harm the children of this village. If you say you are doing this to protect the future of the leaf, then that is simply plain hypocrisy. That goes for the boy at the headquarters too. That is no normal child, Hiruzen, Danzo said. The notion that he should be treated like any other is sheer naivete. Sasuke shoved away from Jun and freed his arms. I don't care if Naruto's a Jinchuriki or whatever, he cried, drawing everyone's attention. How did you? Itachi said, glancing over his shoulder at his tiny brother. Naruto is my friend, Sasuke continued, taking the shuriken holder of Jun. He's a person with a dream to be Hokage. He blinked, bringing forth his one-tomo Sharingan. My job is to see him get there. The academy student tossed a single shuriken at Danzo. The elder evaded, with a simple lean to the side. What are you doing, Sasuke? Jun said. I can't let Lord Itachi or the Jonin commander down, let's get you to safety. Not yet. Sasuke shouted as he threw another shuriken. The weapon sailed past Danzo, missing its mark by a mile. Danzo gazed at the head of the Uchiha clan. You really have to put your family in their place, Itachi. But the head of the Uchiha clan did not listen to his enemy. Instead, he looked to the shuriken behind him. How many times had he done that little trick for Sasuke? The younger Uchiha never could do that, so bringing it up now was more than ambitious. The two shuriken arced toward each other, aimed at a collision behind Danzo's area of vision. The two met, crashed, and changed course. One flew harmlessly off, and another struck Danzo in the back. The village elder grunted as the impact hit him, then reached behind himself and pulled the shuriken from his skin. Cheap gimmick, showy but not really practical. You'll have to do better than that. But Itachi could see Kakashi stand up out of the corner of his eye. He was holding his face, his palm over his natural eye. Itachi gasped at the sight of the Sharingan in Kakashi's eye and the pattern that swirled in its iris. But that was good enough diversion, the veteran Anbu stated. A little hole appeared in the middle of Danzo's chest. The older, knowing the threat this was, tried to get away from it. Too slow, Kakashi goaded. Kamui. Danzo was fast enough that the portal was no longer directly above his chest, away from his heart and lungs, but it wasn't enough. The gateway slammed closed, ripping the root leader's shoulder. Danzo checked that his hidden weapon was still attached, the Sharingan-laden arm hanging by a thread. Itachi pushed forward, he was sure this was his chance. As long as there were Sharingans, Danzo could undo whatever damage Kakashi had inflicted on him. The Uchiha had to make sure his mentor's attack was not in vain. Amaterasu. Itachi roared, activating his Mangekyo, using the first thing that came to his head. He was shocked to find that his second technique was one with which he was somewhat familiar, having seen Tekka perform it. Danzo's modified arm slipped off, the final threads of flesh melting in the heat of the black flames, keeping it attached to the root leader's body. Itachi drew a kunai, aiming for the last remaining Sharingan in Danzo's eye. But when he got closer, a great tree grew out of nowhere and took root through the pavement, blocking his way. Itachi put together the clues surrounding him and figured that Danzo's arm must have been some kind of transformation, and somehow managed to extinguish even the flames of Amaterasu. What he couldn't make out was how or why. What is this? Itachi wondered, looking up at the green tree leaves that had sprung out of nowhere. He was so engrossed that he hardly heard the thud of Kakashi's lifeless body hitting the ground. You have got Lord First's DNA in that arm, right? Hokage inquired, towering over the fallen Danzo, the root leader falling to his knees. He said nothing, but the gaze he returned was all the response that was needed. First Hokage? Itachi asked. Why would he do that? So he could obtain the wood-style Kekai Genkai. But if that was the case, why didn't he use such a powerful ability? The professor gave his analysis. I don't doubt anymore that you were a partner for Orochimaru's experiments, Danzo, including his research on artificially giving someone the wood style. But you also know that, while possible, the procedure has an incredibly low survival rate. That's why you kept Lord Hashirama's genetic material sealed in that arm, no doubt a specially designed transplant. Danzo laughed. Hiruzen, you are acute as always. Your look is like the light that shines on the leaves and illuminates all of their detail. It would appear I have put all my cards bare. But I still don't understand, Itachi said up. Why waste all that effort on a power he wouldn't even use against someone as skilled as you? Lord First's abilities were more than controlling wooden constructs. The Hokage said. He could create entire forests from nothing, because his chakra itself had life-giving properties. This gave him a tremendous vitality, and enabled him to heal himself and others just by using his chakra. It could even slow the aging process. I see. Itachi said. So that's why. I also assume he needed that extra vigor to perform the Izanagi. He still has one last Sharingan, he could use it to at least make an escape. But he's doing nothing with it. I can only assume it's beyond his ability in his current state. The Hokage set his staff down and got down on his knees before Danzo. Why go that far? Why take power away from others? You were always strong enough by yourself. I had to be as strong as you, Danzo replied. You were the standard, always. Even when we were Genin Lord Second never looked at anyone but you to be his successor. I could never become Hokage as I was. Lord Third scowled, but it seems that I had one weakness. Danzo's eyes opened wide. Even as an enemy, with the spite that had driven his power grabbing in the shadows, he couldn't even picture Hiruzen Sarutobi having a weakness. You said my eyes were like a light that shone on all the detail, the Hokage went on. But I see now I could not penetrate your darkness. I saw you as strong all these years, and more importantly, as a valuable ally even when we disagreed. I'm ashamed that I could not see the true nature of you, and that I could not help you when you needed it. The Hokage stood up. Sorry, he added, as he walked away, the adamantine staff vanishing in a puff of smoke. But, Danzo said, the shock on his face betraying how unsettled he was by the Hokage's comments. But, I was following Lord Second's philosophy. Remove all emotions and emotion to make the best reasonable conclusions. All for the interest of the village. You went too far with that. The Hokage said. Making rational decisions is good, but our goals, protecting the village, our loved ones, are ultimately emotional and sentimental in nature. If you shut yourself off from emotion completely, then you will lose sight of what you aim to do in the first place. Otherwise you would have recognized the folly of your actions. Have you forgotten the reason for which Lord Second died? Danzo opened his mouth to say something, but when nothing came out he simply bowed his head in shame. Enough, replied the Hokage. Itachi turned his back on Danzo and saw the pain on the face of the village head. Hiruzen Sarutobi glanced at the Uchiha clan leader. Do what you have to, he ordered, then jumped to the top of the earthen wall and, raising his clenched fist in the air, sent what had been a crowd into a frenzy of shouts and yells. Itachi took a few steps forward till he stood in front of Danzo. Then you won, said the leader of the Roots. No, said Itachi. This feels like a totally unnecessary distraction. What? Danzo inquired. Itachi explained. Your paranoia is inventing enemies where there were none before. I wonder how many people out there hate the Hidden Leaf just because of you, and how many allies we have lost. As Itachi said this, the sounds of footsteps of people coming from the direction of the military police headquarters could be heard by him and Danzo. Both of them glanced over at the newcomers. So it's over then. Naruto stood in front of her, Makoto's hands on his shoulders. They had a few Uchiha policemen flanking them. Yeah, Itachi answered. Get Kakashi and Jun inside, they need medical attention. Makoto signaled her officers. You heard him. Right, one of them answered for the group before they began to split up to gather up the two injured shinobi. Sasuke came back with a pair lifting a barely conscious Jun off him. Naruto walked up to the young Uchiha, raised his hand for a high five. Sasuke. Sasuke, on the other hand, skipped the high five and hugged his friend instead. Wait, what is this? Naruto inquired, bewildered by the motion. Makoto went to the boys and threw her arms around both of them. I'm so glad you're safe. Come on, let's get you two inside. Okay. Mother, Sasuke said as Makoto moved away from him and his friend. The police chief walked the two academy students back into the headquarters. Amidst these cheering sounds could be heard from the other side of the earth barrier, the crowd beyond forgetting that barely moments before they had been a mob. Now they were just a group of grateful citizens cheering for their Hokage. Too weak to turn his head, Danzo turned his eyes to his old companion standing by the wall. You hear that? The people love him. Hiruzen was always talented, not only as a shinobi, but as a leader. He always seemed to know what to say and what to do to reassure other people and make them feel safe under him. I was never so lucky, so I told myself that I would be the roots, burrowing in the dark to support the great tree of our village. While Hiruzen was the leaves bathing in the sun, I guess my resentment of Hiruzen turned that dream sour. Itachi stood in silence, listening to the thoughts of the elder at death's door. Danzo turned his gaze toward the Uchiha. Itachi, you're just like me. You may be a talented shinobi, but you are not a leader. You must think and calculate your steps as a clan head if you want others to follow you. You lack the charisma of people like Hiruzen and Lord First. So you're trying to say I'll end up like you? Asked Itachi. I don't think so. I won't forget the reasons I fight the way you did. Danzo responded, you will if you aren't careful. I know you'd do anything to protect the village. In fact, I had several plans laid out that depended on it. But it seems I have been outplayed on this occasion. I'll take that under advisement, said Itachi. Any last words? Danzo grunted. HMPH. I wish I could tell you they wouldn't be my last, but at this point I have no more cards to play. Even if I wanted to sacrifice my last Sharingan, I don't have the chakra reserves or the stamina to use it effectively without Lord First's DNA. So all that I can do is ask that you prove me wrong. Make the Uchiha into a force that safeguards the village hidden in the leaves, and make sure that Jinchuriki becomes the vanguard of the village's future, not the harbinger of its destruction. We are of one mind, Itachi said, closing his eyes and holding up his kunai. He opened his eyes again, pushing his weapon into Danzo's last Sharingan, releasing the last ounce of Kagami Uchiha's stolen power. Itachi loosened his grip as soon as he felt the kunai embed itself into Danzo's brain. The root commander slumped to the floor, dead. Tsunade tapped her foot against the floor, her face showing deep annoyance. I should have never come back, she said the Hokage. I just finished with those civilians and now you have me treating additional patients as soon as I'm done with them. Itachi stood by the Hokage and his former student, watching the pair of renowned shinobi as they stood in a hallway of the hospital. The next morning following the event at the military police headquarters, when Itachi and the Hokage had come to check on the status of the previous day's casualties. Sorry about that, the Hokage remarked, robed again in the robes of his office. Unforeseen circumstances. Can we see them? Itachi interrupted. Tsunade turned her attention to the Uchiha clan head and nodded. She took a step back, opened the nearest door and the three of them walked into the hospital room. Tsunade gestured to the unconscious Anbu on the bed. Besides a few scratches and gashes that were treated with first aid, it's just chakra depletion, and a very severe case at that. Because of the jutsu he had used? Itachi asked. Tsunade nodded her answer. I don't know where he got the ability to do that, but I would suggest that he do his best to avoid utilizing it. His chakra reserves aren't good enough to accomplish it safely. I thought so, Itachi said, because he uses the Sharingan without the Kekai Genkai. If you ask me, he's still young and his chakra reserves should keep growing for a good long time, so maybe with some hard training and better control he could use it well someday, Tsunade said. Still, given you are the Uchiha clan head, I would argue that this is more your realm than mine. I'll leave it to you to talk to him about it. What about the young lady? The Hokage chimed in. Right next door. Tsunade turned back into the corridor and led the other two into the room next door. She opened the door and there was the sleeping Jun Uchiha. Shizune had to amputate what was left of her knee. There were so many shards of bone in her flesh that it would not have been able to heal properly, Tsunade stated, pointing to where the blanket that lay on top of Jun dropped flat where her lower right leg should have been. Right now we're making a prosthetic for her, Tsunade said. It'll let her get around a bit, but her days as a frontline shinobi are done. Itachi breathed in deeply as he took in this news. I see. I thought so, but nonetheless, it's disheartening to hear. Watch her, the Hokage replied, placing a soothing hand on Itachi's shoulder. Emotional tolls like these can be hard to deal with, particularly when it prohibits someone from accomplishing something they've worked so hard for. I'll keep that in mind, Itachi answered, storing the advice away in his head. The Hokage shifted his gaze to his old student. Did you have time to take care of that other thing I phoned you back about? Tsunade nodded in return. Let's go. Itachi and the Hokage followed, out of Jun's room and down the corridor towards the small break room. Tsunade saw to it that they were alone and closed and locked the door behind them. Did your research turn up anything? The Hokage said. There were many records in the archives of techniques and methods that can extend the user's lifespan, Tsunade answered. But most of them were created after Madara was supposedly killed by my grandfather, so I doubt he could have used them. Most of the others have damaging side effects that, even if they kept him alive, would have drained so much of his strength that I doubt he could have fought someone like Minato on even terms. So it was a dead end, stated Itachi. There was one, I think, that has a real chance, although it's still slim, Tsunade observed. The Earth Grudge, a forbidden jutsu of the hidden waterfall village. I couldn't find anything on what exactly it could do, but what I did find seemed to suggest that it provided some means of slowing aging. It was invented before Madara defected, so it fits in the time frame, but the only manuscript describing it was stolen from the hidden waterfall by one of their rogue Jonin, way back in my grandfather's day. It's possible that knowledge of it somehow ended up in Madara's hands, but there's no real reason to suspect that at the moment. The Hokage took a long breath taking in this knowledge. Thank you, Tsunade. It was always a long shot, so I'm not overly shocked that you found up nothing substantial. Still, it is frequently just as essential to know what something is not as it is to know what something is. Itachi interrupted. Hold on. The Hokage inquired, what is it? The Uchiha inquired, what about the first Hokage? His chakra has life-giving characteristics, it can even slow the aging process. We witnessed Danzo yesterday, enhancing his physical abilities with Lord First's DNA. Tsunade's ears perked up and she started putting the pieces together in her thoughts. Of course. All this other research, running around in circles, while the most straightforward explanation was right under our noses. I never knew my grandfather to use his chakra to extend his or anyone else's lifespan, but it would certainly be possible. Well, theoretically at least. And Madara could have gotten it directly from the source. I'm sure he could have acquired a blood sample from any of their battles. Possibly even from their final one. Madara's death at the final valley is still a problem, the Hokage added. Lord First never was much for talking about it, but as far as I know he was never anything but sure Madara had perished at his hands. This thought over for a bit, and his eyes widened as he sat up stiffly, the conclusion coming to him with great force. Danzo, he supplied us with all the answers. Lord First's DNA, then the Izanagi. The what? Tsunade questioned. A dangerous Sharingan technique that Danzo used in our battle yesterday, the Hokage continued. One that allows the user to alter reality itself for a short period at the cost of an eye. Danzo had used it countless times to heal deadly injury to himself. The most reasonable explanation so far, Tsunade replied. Madara could have taken a sample of my grandfather's DNA during one of their battles and used Izanagi to fake his death. It would also explain why Madara retreated into seclusion afterwards, continued Itachi. Losing a Sharingan would have greatly weakened him. It even matches Tekka and Inabe's description of the mask with one eye hole. He might have been hiding a Sharingan that had been used to perform the Izanagi. The Hokage nodded, considering this line of thinking. It suits better than anything else we have discussed. I must, however, advise against such assumptions. We don't have any firm evidence. For all we know, the Madara narrative was a cover for whatever the genuine mastermind is. He turned to the door. Thank you for the report, and keep me posted on your patience. Come, Itachi, we still have Jiraiya and Shisui to listen to. The Uchiha followed the village leader out of the hospital and made their way to the Hokage residence. Sasuke sat in his seat waiting for classes to start at the academy. Naruto had returned to a much more joyous audience than his previous go-around after the kidnapping incident, with Choji and Shikamaru greeting him smiles and high fives. That was 2 more people than the 0 he had gotten last time. Hinata, as per her usual as Sasuke was increasingly noticing, sat in the corner and smiled on the scene from afar. Now all that was left was to sit and wait for the substitute instructor to come, or so Sasuke thought. How's everybody doing? Iruka yelled, waving a bandaged palm at the students as he went through the door. Sensei, why you're back, Sakura said, sitting up straight at the sight of the class regular teacher. Most of the other kids responded similarly. Yeah, I am, Iruka said. My injuries were pretty severe, took a while to heal. I hope the sub did alright while I was in the hospital. Ino looked surprised. Hospital? Sensei Iruka, were you that sick? Now it was Iruka's turn to look astonished. Who told you guys I was sick? I mean, we just kinda figured, Kiba said. The sub didn't tell us anything but you'd be gone a while. Iruka looked around the room at his students. So, no one told you guys anything about Naruto's kidnapping? Abduction. Sakura said disbelievingly before she turned in her seat to look at Naruto. No way, that's right. Nobody would want that twerp that much to kidnap him. Sakura. Naruto begged, burying his head under his arms. Most of the other students started to laugh. Yeah. Iruka-sensei. Kiba managed to get out through his hysterical fits of laughter, smacking his desk. You're gonna have to come up with a better narrative than that if you want to wow us. Sasuke sat in his seat, letting the laughter wash over him. His eyes scanned his classmates, seeing how all of them, save for the trio who had gone with him to the military police headquarters and the ever-stoic Shino, were laughing at the expense of his friend. Gritting his teeth in a quickly thwarted attempt to suppress his anger, he stood up and slammed both hands against his desk. Shut up! He screamed at the top of his voice. The room became silent as all eyes turned to the Uchiha lad, stunned. Sasuke turned to leave the room, determined to waste no more of his time on his peers. He walked out the back door at the back of the classroom, slamming the door behind him. He looked up at the ceiling, breathing hard, powerful breaths through his nose as the wrath stewed within him. It took him several seconds to realize he was not alone. He glanced to his left, down the hall toward the front entrance to the classroom, and saw a boy. Pale skin, dark hair that was styled in a way that obviously gave no thought beyond mere function. He was just standing there, staring at Sasuke. No surprise, no worry, not a hint of detectable emotion on his face. There were only these dark eyes that watched dispassionately. Iruka came from inside the classroom, and both Sasuke's and this boy's gaze were preoccupied. "Sasuke!" the teacher shouted as he opened the door next to the other boy. "Oh, good, you're still here," he said when he saw that the young Uchiha was just standing out in the hall. "Look, I know how frustrated you must be with how the other kids are treating Naruto, but you can't let that get to you. Why don't you go back inside, and maybe, just maybe, you and Naruto will get a chance to prove everyone else wrong." The young Uchiha stared at his teacher for a long while, pondering everything Iruka had just told him. "Okay," he said, opening the back entrance and strolling back to his seat. "Well, now that things have settled down," Iruka stated with a forced enthusiasm as he moved back to his desk at the front of the classroom. "Let's get to the first order of business that I wanted to get to today." He motioned to the still open door, but nothing happened. Iruka began to wave more obviously, sweeping movements, to beckon the boy in the corridor to come in. "Come on, there's no need to be afraid, you can come in." "I'm not afraid," the youngster said in a flat voice, still standing out in the hall. "Who is that?" Sasuke heard one of the girls question the kid sitting next to them. Iruka sighed. "Listen, can you just come into the room, please?" The boy strode into the room without giving Iruka the luxury of a vocal response. Then he stood at Iruka's desk. Nothing else, just standing. Iruka began as the uneasy silence in the room started getting thicker and thicker. "Why don't you introduce yourself? Your name, why you're transferring to our class, so on." "My name is Sai," the youngster said. "The owner of the orphanage I was living at passed away recently and it had to close down. The village is taking me in, so I am to start attending these classes." "Very good," Iruka replied with a smile. "Why don't you take a seat over?" He started scanning the room. "There," he finished, pointing at an open seat near the windows. "Now, I want you guys to be extra nice to Sai," Iruka informed the class as the youngster started walking to the chair. "He's been going through some hard times recently and I'm sure he has some catching up to do." Sai came to a standstill, standing over his new chair. "There's no need for that," he remarked in that same monotone voice. "I'm not in any kind of pain. Besides, I'm sure that I am more advanced as a shinobi than any of the students here." In an instant the awkward silence in the room morphed into a stunned one. Just as suddenly it transformed into a cacophony of screaming and yelling. "You think you can get away with dissing us like that, punk?" Kiba screamed, piercing through the tangled jumble of sound. Sakura's voice was the next to pierce the hubbub. "There's no way you can be better than all of us." "Yeah," Ino joined in. "I bet Sasuke is definitely better than you." From across the room the young Uchiha caught Shikamaru's gaze. The Nara youngster had his chair reversed, leaning backwards against the wall. He let out a theatrical sigh once he was satisfied that he had the other boy's attention. Sasuke gave a quick nod to convey his agreement with the sentiment. It was only after additional scanning that the Uchiha made out Naruto. The blonde wasn't shouting like most of the rest of the pupils. Instead he had a mischievous smirk on his face as he peered directly at the new arrival. Itachi drew a deep breath as the Hokage took his seat at his desk, Jiraiya and Shisui there in the office with them. "I'm sorry that we weren't there to help you guys deal with Danzo," the Toad Sage stated before anyone else could make a comment. "If I had known that old Warhawk was planning something like that I would have put our mission on hold." "Don't blame yourself," the Hokage answered. "It was my decision that you and Shisui push ahead with the investigation while the rest of us dealt with Danzo." Jiraiya nodded in response. "Speaking of which, Shisui and I made some progress." "That's correct," the Uchiha echoed. "We were able to find a few of Lord Forth's safe houses in the forests and hills surrounding the village. We haven't found any evidence of a battle or confrontation with the masked Madara like we were theorizing, but we have a methodology and pattern to follow to find more safe houses." "Good, keep it up," the Hokage answered. "I would like for us to have more manpower," Jiraiya stated. "Itachi will be a nice addition, but we need more than that." "I actually have a request along those lines," the Uchiha clan head stated. "Oh, The Hokage questioned. Go ahead. It turns out my mother is aware of Naruto's identity. Kushina told her shortly before her death, Itachi explained. I have made an offer for her to join our mission. The Hokage nodded in response. Very well, I will send for her so that we may discuss it. What about Kakashi Hitaki? Shisui said. I remember you saying that he is also in the know. I had originally hoped to have him work on another project, the Hokage said. However, with the recent events involving Danzo, we've had to reorient the Anbu towards the dismantling of Root, so the mission I originally had in mind for him has been put on hold. Once he has been released from the hospital, he may join your investigation. Taking a moment to study the other shinobi in the room, he added, if there is nothing else, you are dismissed. Jiraiya walked out of the office while Itachi and Shisui bowed to the Hokage. Actually, Lord Hokage, the Uchiha clan head remarked. I would appreciate it if Shisui and I could inform Kakashi tomorrow. There is something I believe we need to discuss with him, so it would be convenient if we could also tell him about the investigation. The Hokage nodded in response. If that is what you feel to be best, you may. Thank you, Lord Hokage, Itachi answered before he and Shisui turned and went out of the room. The older Uchiha waited until they were further down the hall before speaking. What do we need to speak with Kakashi about? He's in the same position as us, Itachi said, pointing at his eye. Oh, Shisui said. Frankly, it's amazing that a non-Uchiha was able to acquire it. But you're right. In fact, there's a conversation I'm meaning to have with you about it, might as well include him. Itachi nodded as the pair went down the hall. As they strolled, Shikaku Nara came up from the other direction. Oh, Itachi, the Nara clan head said. How are you doing after yesterday? All things considered, okay, Itachi answered. I imagine you're in the same position as us with having to regroup after everything that happened. The Jonin commander rubbed the back of his head as he responded. Yeah, it's been a drag trying to make sure that everyone's on the same page with the Danzo attempting a coup stuff. But we're getting there. Itachi nodded in a show of understanding. The coup tale was something he and the Hokage decided on, in order to divert the audience from the crisis facing Naruto. By the way, Itachi, Shikaku said. What's the condition of that clanswoman of yours? Jun, right? The Uchiha clan head said, astonished to hear the young Chunin being brought up. Oh, sorry. She'll live, but her lower right leg is gone. They're making a prosthetic for her, but she'll never work as a shinobi again. I see, I was afraid of that, Shikaku said. Can you send her my way once she's released from the hospital? There's something I'd like to discuss with her. Does it have something to do with the incident at the military police headquarters? Itachi wondered. I guess you could say that, Shikaku said. Itachi nodded. I'll be sure to let her know. Thank you, Shikaku murmured as he resumed his old way. The two Uchiha went on their way as well, Itachi looking back on the events over the prior couple of days as they did. He had informed Danzo that their confrontation appeared like a distraction, but now he wasn't so sure. The Root leader had accidentally demonstrated to them the approach that Madara would have been most likely to adopt to survive in the shadows in the decades since his death. Beyond that, the finding of Kakashi's Mangekyo and the building of the friendship between not just Sasuke and Naruto, but also between the latter and Mikoto, could very well wind up paying rewards down the road. Itachi grinned softly to himself. Despite the challenges and tribulations, he could not help but believe that they were making strides in the right direction. You're really something else, Kakashi, Shisui stated, sitting in a chair next to the copy ninja's hospital bed. Some in the clan felt you were a thief for possessing a Sharingan, but I was never like that. The fact that you've obtained the Mangekyo is something else, though. I'm sure that there would be any number of Uchiha who would be envious of you. Kakashi tilted his head to gaze at Shisui, his left eye, his Sharingan eye, was closed. Thanks, but I don't think you came here to congratulate me. He looked at Itachi, who was leaning on the window frame. I'm sure you two have something more substantive you want to discuss. You're not wrong, Itachi said. You see, we actually want to chat with you about the Mangekyo. How often have you used it? Twice, Kakashi answered. One time I learned I had the ability, the other during the fight with Danzo. I passed out the second time, almost did the first, so I'm assuming that's part of the drawback of the Mangekyo Sharingan. It is, confirmed Itachi. I guess it was more intense for you because you're not a natural-born Uchiha though. Lady Tsunade theorized that over time you could build up your chakra reserves enough to be able to use it safely, but that would only happen after lots of hard training. That's not even the half of it, Shisui remarked. You two have only recently gained your new abilities, so I don't think you'd notice. But I've had my Mangekyo Sharingan for a few years now, And I can tell you there are long-term consequences to using it too. What consequences? Said Kakashi. The Mangekyo Sharingan is a kind of finite resource, Itachi remarked. Every use harms the eye, causing eyesight to deteriorate and eventually lead to blindness. But Shisui, I had no notion you were suffering such effects. The older Uchiha nodded, grimly. Yeah. It's subtle, but I can feel it every time I try to look at something on the edge of my sight. Things that used to be clear are now just a little bit blurry. I've made a concerted effort not to use my Mangekyo, but I guess there have been enough times where I've been backed into a corner and been forced to rely on it. Is there any kind of cure or treatment? Kakashi inquired. There is, answered Itachi. The clan's records aren't exactly clear, but Madara Uchiha had a younger brother who had a Mangekyo Sharingan, and at some point Madara had his brother's eyes transplanted into himself, which caused their Sharingan to somehow combine, returning Madara's sight to normal and preventing any future damage. Kakashi covered his eye with his hand. Well, if it came to it, I'd probably give my eye to one of you too if either of you ever went blind. It's not like this was mine in the first place. Please, neither of us would want you to ever make that sort of sacrifice on our behalf, Shisui stated. Besides, Itachi interrupted. I've read that procedure only works on eyes from a close connection of the recipient. A sibling. A parent. Neither of us has any close tie to the eye's original owner. Kakashi pulled his hand away from his face, his Sharingan still close. I guess that's fair. Still, it's not like we have to just sit around and wait to go blind if we can help it. True enough, Shisui nodded. My answer in the past has been to simply not utilize it and try to depend on my other skills. But considering the events of the last few weeks, I believe it is fair to conclude that our current level of strength is not enough to get better in other areas, so we won't have to rely on our eyes as much, Kakashi said. Shisui nodded. That was the thought process, yes. I'll agree with that, Itachi remarked. But that's easier said than done. Abilities as powerful as the Mangekyo Sharingan aren't just lying there. Maybe, but I think there is a gap between our Mangekyo techniques and our other ones, at least for you and me, Shisui commented. But you, Kakashi. There aren't many that can say that they've created their own original A-rank jutsu. You're telling me you want to learn my Chidori? Kakashi inquired. Shisui nodded in reply. If you wouldn't mind. I have some experience in the lightning style, nothing on the level of the Chidori though. I don't mind the idea, but, Kakashi began, his glance moving to Itachi. With your Sharingan you must have seen me wield the Chidori and the lightning blade at least a dozen times. Can you do it? Itachi shook his head. I know how it works, but I've never practiced with lightning techniques. You two go ahead with it, I'll find something else. Then Shisui and I can get started tomorrow after I'm released from the hospital, Kakashi stated. Actually, there's something else we want to talk to you about before that, said Shisui. Itachi inhaled deeply and joined in. Well, you see, Shisui and I are on a covert mission with several others, one that can tell a few fresh information on the demise of the fourth Hokage. Kakashi sat there in silence, staring through his one open eye at Itachi. What do you mean? He asked at last. What we are looking for, Shisui explained, are the secret safe houses he built outside of the village. We think something may have happened at one of them that will shed new light on why he died, and why he sealed the nine-tailed fox in his newborn son. So you two know about that then, said Kakashi. I'll go with you. Just tell me the details when I get out tomorrow. Thanks, Itachi remarked. Don't thank me, Kakashi said. I'm doing this for me, not for you. Itachi watched the copy ninja, noting the gleam in his eyes. It was tightly veiled, like all of Kakashi's emotions, but Itachi could sense the faraway agony that lingered at the back of his mind. It reminded him of his mother and Jiraiya when they spoke about the passing of the fourth Hokage and his wife. He'd never known them himself, but the more people he met who'd been in their orbit, the more of a huge hole he could see, left by their awful deaths. Got it, muttered Shisui, hitting his knees as he got to his feet. Get released tomorrow and come to Lord Hokage's office. We'll be there. Sure, Kakashi managed to say before a loud crash echoed through the room, putting the three top shinobi on alert. What was that? Itachi wondered, looking for something outside the window. Shisui stepped to the door, opened it and looked out into the hall to see if there was anything. I assume it must have originated from one of the adjoining rooms. Jun, Itachi muttered, going out into the hall and joining his clansmen at the entrance, Kakashi close behind him. The two Uchihas went down one door and opened it to see the one-legged Chunin spilled out on the floor. Are you okay? Shisui asked as he ran over to Jun with Itachi. Jun got up on her hands and stared up at her clansman. Oh, I'm fine. I was just trying to go somewhere. You need to stay in bed until your prosthetic is ready, Itachi stated, kneeling down next to Jun. And no. I mean, she stammered. Before she could say anything else, Kakashi ghosted in between the two Uchiha men and swept Jun up into his arms. Now, where do you have to go? He asked her. Oh, okay. Jun started, but Itachi and Shisui couldn't hear her whispered response to Kakashi. Blushing now, Jun was carried out into the hall by Kakashi. Itachi and Shisui glanced at each other and followed them. When they caught up they discovered Kakashi outside the door to the women's restroom. She had to get to the toilet and the nurse wasn't answering her calls. Kakashi told the pair of Uchiha. She was embarrassed that she couldn't take care of it herself. Oh, I understand, Itachi said. Kakashi leaned against the wall again, resuming. Listen, Itachi. Physical wounds will heal in time, and people learn to live with scars. But, he hesitated for a bit, and Itachi could sense he wasn't talking about simply Jun. The emotional scars, the ones in the brain, Kakashi went on. They don't just get better, you know. You need closure, or at least a feeling that there's something else out there for you. If you don't have that, then you just slowly die from the inside. Itachi asked, what are you trying to say? She needs more than time, that woman. Kakashi explained. Get her something to hang on to. Thanks for that, we'll keep that in mind, Shisui remarked. Can we leave Jun with you for a while? Kakashi nodded in response, and the two Uchiha bowed to the copy ninja in thanks before taking their leave. You want to go back to the complex? Shisui asked Itachi as they strolled down the hall. Not yet, Itachi replied. You go on, there's a stop I want to make first. Sasuke sat and watched Sai race through an obstacle course. It was one Sasuke himself had completed just 20 minutes ago, part of the usual class work at the academy. As expected, the young Uchiha had the best time in class, and by a wide margin. But that margin was going to be a hell of a lot smaller. At the rate Sai was going, he was going to be close. Sasuke wasn't afraid that his time may be beaten, not really, but close enough that he could picture Sai doing that if he got enough tries. It was a true microcosm of the first few days Sai spent at the academy. He seemed to have come from nowhere, but had slotted himself comfortably into the class. Socially, he was an outcast, with a peculiar personality, but in terms of homework he was excellent across the board. He bested Kiba in his first bout in sparring matches. On the written tests, he did about as well as Sakura. He had learned the transformation required as swiftly as Sasuke did in his first ninjutsu lecture. Who he was and where he came from was irrelevant, it was evident he had been trained as a shinobi, and was darn excellent at it. Sasuke was distracted from his new classmate's skills by the grumbling of an old student. He looked to his right and noticed Naruto drawing lines in the soil with his finger. The class clown had already gone through his performance on the course, ending it in his usual clumsy way. On the surface he seemed to be back to his former self, but Sasuke could see he wasn't quite the same. He was simply a bit more reluctant to stand up for himself against the jibes of his classmates when he made a mistake. As he fell, it only took a split second longer to get back on his feet. Most of all, he appeared to be pondering an idea he was cooking up in his thoughts. What's that? Sasuke asked his pal, leaning to see over the blonde boy's shoulder. Just my plan to welcome Mr. I'm too cool for you to the class, Naruto replied with a grin. Sasuke looked at the lines in the dirt, and after over a minute of trying to figure out what they were supposed to be, he couldn't. Are you sure you want to do that? He said. What? Yelled Naruto. Yeah, I'm sure. Look here. He responded, pointing at the picture in the soil. Ah, never mind. Sasuke tried to decipher the schematics Naruto was drafting for another minute but gave up and looked back up at the blonde. Are you sure you should be pranking Sai? He asked the class clown. You helped me with a prank, one time, Naruto said. What's the difference? Last time we tried one, we got in trouble, Sasuke said. After the last few weeks, don't you think you should just keep your head down? Naruto punched his hand into the ground, smearing the picture he'd been sketching in the dirt. Why would I want to do that? He inquired, standing up on his feet. Before Sasuke could think of a reply, the blonde turned to walk away. Naruto? Iruka said. He saw the young student out of the corner of his eye. Bathroom, the blonde said, without looking at his teacher. Oh, okay then, Iruka said, and Naruto proceeded on his walk. Sasuke observed the blonde's retreating back for a bit, then looked back down at the picture in the ground. It was even less decipherable to him now that Naruto had given up on it. He couldn't help wondering if he should have done something else. "Thank you, Lord Hokage," bowed Makoto Uchiha to the chief of the town. "I'll gladly go on this mission." It felt odd, bowing to a leader she had once planned to topple, or at least she had been in the same room as individuals who were trying to overthrow him. But her life had taken a drastic turn in the past several weeks. "Very good," said the Hokage as the Uchiha matriarch pulled herself back up. "See me in my office tomorrow to meet the rest of the team, once you've had a chance to leave someone in charge of the military police in your absence." Dismissed. "Got it," Makoto said, before turning and leaving the office. As she went, she bit down on the tip of her thumb, still attempting to digest the information the Hokage had told her. She knew already about Naruto's heritage, but there was so much more she hadn't even thought. To think that a person, a shinobi, was behind the Nine Tails attack all those years ago. Or even worse, they could have been a Sharingan user or even Madara Uchiha himself. That was a lot for her to take in. She had a lot of preparations to make, not least of which was appointing a trusted officer to lead the military police while she was away from the hamlet. But she was distracted from that, glancing up instead at the clock hanging in the lobby of the Hokage residence, and realizing that it was almost time for the academy to let out for the day. She was already out and about, so she might as well go pick up Sasuke and maybe check in on Naruto too. Of course, the closeness of the academy helped with that decision as well. Makoto arrived just as the pupils were let out of class. The short walk was timed perfectly. She walked past the children who were leaving with their parents, most of them from civilian homes, she noted, and headed into the school lobby. She entered the building and saw Iruka standing guard, watching the kids finish their classes and go. He heard the sound of Makoto opening the main doors and switched his attention to that, calling out, "Hello, ma'am. You here looking for Sasuke?" "Yes," Makoto said, smiling as she spoke to the teacher. "Any idea where he went when class was over?" Iruka rubbed his chin, pondering the topic. "Let's see. Well, if I had to guess, I would assume that went out into the woods beyond the academy with Naruto." "The woods?" Makoto said, bewildered. "Why are they back there?" Iruka pointed. "There's a little clearing back there where Naruto's made himself a secret training location. I'd say he's been there most afternoons for a couple of years now. I suppose Sasuke must have started joining him at some time." "I see," Makoto said. "Thank you," she added, as she headed for the back exit of the academy. She left the school building behind and started strolling through the woods. She wasn't sure exactly where this makeshift training facility was, but given the fact that this was the hideaway a pair of children, she was convinced that she could discover merely by heading straight ahead. Her instincts weren't wrong, for the grunting of a boy rang in the trees as the Uchiha matriarch strode into the woods. She saw them soon enough. Naruto was throwing shuriken at a target, and Sasuke was sitting a little distance away observing closely. For a time she thought of proclaiming her presence to the pair, but then thought of something better. Her acceptance of the job of military police chief had pretty much pulled her out of retirement after a few years of being the good housewife. With that and the secret mission looming, she had to start acting and thinking like a ninja again. Sneaking up on a pair of academy students wasn't a great test, but a little start was a start nonetheless. She snuck around the perimeter of the little training area, sneaking around just out of sight. Naruto was focused on his training, his eyes only on the makeshift targets that had been set up in the clearing. At this point, it was no big achievement to elude his senses, not that Makoto was expecting anything more from an academy student. She was a bit more astonished in her son though. Perhaps it was a double standard, considering he was the same age as Naruto, but Makoto was half surprised Sasuke hadn't picked up on her presence. He had already proved himself to be a prodigy like his older brother, but it was evident that something was on the boy's mind and that something involved Naruto given how Sasuke was observing the blonde. She came around to his back, crept closer till she was virtually looming over him. Leaning closer, trying to hide her smile, she whispered in his ear, "What's on your mind, Sasuke?" The youngest Uchiha brother sat up straight, his eyes bulged in surprise. To his credit, he didn't yelp or scream or shout in surprise. "Mother," he said, looking over his shoulder at Makoto, "what are you doing here?" "Oh, I just happened to be passing by the academy and thought I'd check up on you," she said. "I see," Sasuke said, looking back at Naruto, who was oblivious to Makoto's entrance. "Let me ask you again," Makoto replied, softly placing a hand on Sasuke's shoulder. "What's wrong with you?" "Oh, Sasuke began, searching for words. "It's Naruto. Something's wrong with him." Makoto herself stared at the young blonde for a bit. Just like the last time she saw him, she could see Kushina in him. It was there in him, the frustration. She couldn't see his face, but she could see it in him, in his movements as he exercised. Minato never moved like that, everything came too effortlessly to that prodigy for such a thing to ever make itself known. I understand, Makoto responded. Listen, Sasuke. Naruto has gone through trying times recently, just like us. I'm sure he wants everything to be as it was, just like we wish that your father could be with us again. We can't make anything like that happen, but we can at least show him that not everything has changed. What do you mean? Sasuke said. Makoto voiced as she rose up. How about you watch me? Turning her attention to Naruto, she went past her son and walked out towards the young Uzumaki. Her lips twisted into a little smile as Makoto put on her nice mother look, something that she would ordinarily only display to Sasuke and Itachi. Hi there, Naruto, she murmured in a sweet voice. Huh? The child yelled out as he released a shuriken at one of the makeshift targets. Oh, Mrs. Uchiha, he responded, spinning around to face Makoto. How are you doing, Naruto? The Uchiha matriarch said. Oh, I'm fine, Naruto responded, smiling just a little too broad for it to be sincere. Yeah, I'm great. Well, that's good to hear, Makoto answered. Since I'm here, is there anything you'd like to do? Maybe a favorite restaurant or store or anything that you'd like to visit? Well, Naruto began, kicking at the earth uneasily. There is this ramen place near the academy that Iruka-sensei sometimes treats me to. It hasn't been opened since. Everything, but, yeah. I see, Makoto commented. Well then, how about we go and check to see if they're back in business yet? Wait, really? Naruto exclaimed, apparently astonished that an adult other than Iruka was providing this to him. If they're open again, will you buy me some ramen? Sure thing, Makoto said with a smile. Yeah, Naruto screamed, marching off without even considering of recovering his training shuriken. Ichiraku! He started yelling, pumping his hands in the air with delight. Makoto giggled at the sight before looking back over at her kid. Come on, Sasuke, she yelled out to him before running after Naruto. Sasuke said, having spaced off with a serious expression on his face. Yeah, sure, he told her before standing up and following in her footsteps. Itachi made one last check of his supplies as he proceeded down the corridor away from his bedroom. He finished just as he reached the door to his parents. Mother, are you ready? He inquired, knocking on the cracked open door. I'll be just a second, Makoto answered. This is the first time I've gone on a mission in almost 15 years. Give me a moment to collect myself. Understood, Itachi answered. I'll be waiting for you at the entrance to the compound, he added before walking away. He made his way out of the house, and it wasn't until he got outside that it struck to him how novel coming on a mission with his mother was. He had worked with Shisui and his father before, so it wasn't abnormal for him to go on missions with relatives, but his mother had retired long after Itachi was born. It was only now that she said it that this was occurring to him. Maybe it was just a lack of empathy on his part that was undermining him again. He always did have a tendency to not comprehend others, not that he had ever given much effort on that front. But Itachi knew things had to change. His status in the clan and in the community was starting to demand it. He couldn't help but think of Danzo, whose best intentions were lost in his incapacity to understand the feelings and motivations of people. Not that Itachi believed that he might end up like Danzo, but he knew he had to be better than that, for the sake of the town and for the sake of his clan. Maybe he had only started to take the first steps towards that aim. Itachi pulled to a stop at the main entrance to the Uchiha compound and began waiting. For his mother to join him, in part, but there was more than that for him to be patient for. As the Uchiha clan head stood there at the gate to the family compound, a man arrived. She was trudging along on a prosthetic leg, a crutch tucked under her arm to help her along as she relearned how to walk. Lord Itachi? Jun Uchiha asked, seeing the leader of her clan standing at the gate to the Uchiha complex. I'm sorry, are you waiting for someone? For you, in part, Itachi said. For me? Jun inquired. Oh, please, my lord, there's no need for you to do that for me. I'm here to tell you to wait, to be more precise, Itachi replied. There's someone else who should be joining us soon. Jun fixed Itachi with a curious glance. Who? As if in answer, a loud yawn welcomed the next arrival. Shikaku Nara took the corner onto the street leading to the Uchiha compound, placing his hand to his mouth as he struggled against the yawn. Oh, man, bringing me all the way out here so early in the morning is a real drag, the Jonin commander said to Itachi as he neared. But I have a job to do, so it can't be helped. Lord Shikaku! Jun screamed, nearly toppling over as she whirled to face the Jonin commander. Calm down, Shikaku said. And how many times do I have to tell you that I'm not a lord? Sorry, sir, Jun answered. But, why are you here? Shikaku glanced at Itachi. You didn't tell her? I thought it would be best if she heard straight from the source, Itachi explained. Heard what? Jun queried, gazing back and forth between the Jonin commander and the head of her clan. Well, then, Shikaku remarked before turning to the young woman. Jun, as I understand it, your injuries indicate that your career as a kunoichi is over. Yes, sir, that's true, Jun acknowledged, her gaze falling to the ground. Your career on the front lines, anyway, Shikaku added. Jun looked up at the Jonin commander. What do you mean? Running a ninja village takes more than fighting. There's a lot of work to be done behind the scenes, most of which I have to deal with as Jonin commander, Shikaku revealed. While it's not as glamorous as fighting, it is just as important, and I need a number of aides to help me. Jun stared down at the ground, her countenance belonging to someone whose confidence had been crushed. I'm sure there are other people who are better suited than me. You have a unique skill that makes you especially valuable, Shikaku responded, pointing at his eye. Everyone thinks of the Uchiha and the Hyuga in terms of their prowess on the battlefield, but I've always considered the most valuable asset of the Sharingan and the Byakugan to be information gathering, which is useful in any context. To be honest, I've been attempting to get someone with those abilities in my office, but prior Uchiha leadership have insisted on keeping clan members within the military police, while the Hyuga have been too proud to allow one of their own to serve such a post. That's why I was pleasantly delighted when Itachi recommended you. Jun switched her attention to the Uchiha clan head. You did, my lord? Yes, Itachi said with a slight nod. I thought that you could do well as his aide to the Jonin commander. He didn't mention that he hoped that this would help to mend her mind and spirit, better to let her discover that for herself. Jun clenched her eyes, holding back tears. Thank you, sir, I accept. Great, Shikaku said, slapping Jun on the shoulder before going past her. Come now, let's get you started. Wait, now? Jun said even as the Jonin commander walked away from her. I'd very much like to go home first, sir, I haven't been there in days. There's much to do, starting with the paperwork for your transfer, Shikaku stated. You're going to have to get used to paperwork, by the way. It's a hassle, but it's vital to keep the village working properly. Yes, sir, Jun answered, hurrying following the Jonin commander. Itachi was diverted from watching the incident further by the sound of his mother's footsteps behind him. What was Shikaku Nara doing here? She asked her kid once he turned to her. We were just arranging for Jun to transfer to his office, Itachi said. Transferring Jun to the Jonin commander's office, huh? Makoto said. I guess we'll see how that comes out. Itachi saw Shikaku and his new aide slowly moving away from them. Are you ready to go? He then asked his mother, turning to her. Yes, I am, Makoto said. Come, let's not be late. Sasuke walked through the gate to the academy, repeating his journey to Ichiraku with his mother and Naruto in his head. The blonde seemed happier and more stress-free than Sasuke had seen him since the kidnapping, even as he was sitting in the precise site where it had taken place. The young Uchiha had brooded over the scenario all the way home and even as he went to sleep. The imagery was still with him as he walked into school. But the images of Naruto that passed through his mind diverted Sasuke from the real boy creeping up behind him. Hey, Sasuke! Naruto exclaimed, putting his arm around the young Uchiha and letting his weight rest on Sasuke's shoulders. Man, your mom is wonderful, and I'm so thrilled Ichiraku is open again. Glad to hear it, Sasuke said. What are you planning to do with Sai? Naruto drew away from his pal. I thought you didn't want anything to with that. Let's just say I've changed my mind, Sasuke remarked. Let's do it like we did before. Okay, but... Naruto began before hesitating. What is it? Sasuke asked. That Sai, he's so. There's something off about him, Naruto observed. It's like he doesn't have feelings, he doesn't react to things like normal kids would. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty obvious, Sasuke commented. No need to make fun of me, Naruto said. Wah? Sasuke began, shocked. That's not what I meant. Whatever, doesn't matter, Naruto remarked. Anyway, it makes it incredibly hard to find out a method to trick him. The objective is to get a rise out of him, but what if he never rises? Sasuke hesitated for a bit, analyzing this conundrum. Well, there has to be something that would get under his skin. We just need to figure out what. How would we do that, genius? Naruto asked. Sasuke shrugged in answer. I don't know, you're the prankster here. Naruto smiled. Alright, if I'm the expert, then give me a day. I'll have enough to work with by tomorrow. Sitting in the midst of base camp, Itachi watched the other members of his squad. He found himself considering the question of leadership as he did. On the face of it, Jiraiya should have been the leader of the group, as he was both the oldest and most accomplished shinobi in their group. Yet it was clear just from watching how he carried himself that the Toad Sage was uninterested in such a role, preferring to keep to himself and handle his own matters. He wouldn't step up to lead if he could help it. The next most obvious choice was Makoto Uchiha, based both on her experience and on the fact that as the head of the military police she had the highest formal rank in the village hierarchy. Yet she had only just come out of retirement after more than a decade out of action, so it would have been unfair for her to have taken on that extra responsibility of leadership. Shisui would also be a fine choice on paper as an experienced Jonin, yet Itachi knew his friend and clansman well. Shisui was not one to take up the mantle of leadership of his own accord, only agreeing to it reluctantly when no other option was available. His deferring to Itachi on defusing the clan's coup plans was such an example. Itachi allowed himself to consider stepping up to the mantle of leadership for a moment, yet the young clan head found himself thinking back to his final exchange with Danzo. There was much that Itachi disagreed with the now deceased root leader on, and even more that he wanted to deny. But thinking back on Danzo's assertion that Itachi lacked the natural charisma and magnetism to be a great leader, the young Uchiha could not help but agree with the old warhawk. That left one last contender to consider. Kakashi was doing what Itachi had seen his old Anbu captain do many a time before, examining a map, in this case a replica of the one that Shisui and Jiraiya made while everyone else was dealing with Danzo. The one marked with probable locations of the 4th Hokage's secret safe places. "Are you getting any ideas?" Shisui asked, approaching the copycat ninja. "I am," Kakashi said, holding up the map for Shisui to view. Itachi could see it himself from his position, observing that Kakashi had marked a number of paths on it. "I believe that these will allow us to investigate every location in the most efficient manner," Kakashi continued. "Assuming we work in pairs and I summon my hounds." Shisui scanned the map, nodding as he read. "That looks logical," he replied. "Master Jiraiya, are you fine with this?" he continued, turning to the famed shinobi. Jiraiya peered over his shoulder at the pair of Sharingan wielders. "Yep," he responded with a thumbs up before returning to his earlier task. Kakashi offered a curt nod of acknowledgement before calling his ninja hounds. The pack materialized out of a puff of smoke, Pakun sitting on the head of Bull the gigantic bulldog. "Before we go any farther, may I ask that you and I work together, Kakashi?" Shisui asked. "May I ask why?" the copy ninja returned. "I think this would be an opportunity for me to start learning the Chidori as we travel," Shisui said. Kakashi nodded in agreement. "I think that would be a smart use of time. I was intending that I work with Pakun, knowing that we have an odd number of persons, but I suppose he can work with someone else." "Just so long as it's not that rude Uchiha," Pakun said, glancing at Shisui. "Ah, come on," the Uchiha exclaimed. "You're going to hold me attempting to shoo you away over my head every time we meet, aren't you?" Pakun provided the closest thing a dog can give to a smirk. "It's all right, Kakashi," Itachi cried out, raising his hand. "I've worked with Pakun before, so I'll partner with him." Standing off to the side while this exchange went on, Jiraiya watched. His gaze flitted from Shisui and Kakashi to the group's third Sharingan user, standing apart. Then he began going towards the Uchiha clan head. "Itachi, may we talk?" he asked with an unassuming smile. Sure," Itachi said. To the young Uchiha's amazement, the Toad Sage grabbed him by the shoulder and walked him away from the rest of the group. "So, do you have any interest in the Chidori?" Jiraiya asked before Itachi could make any inquiry himself. What?" the young clan head questioned. "I heard Shisui and Kakashi talking about it," Jiraiya explained. "I know the foundations of the method from conversations I had with Minato, and I know how it combines with the Sharingan. So it appears to me that it would be logical for you to study it as well." Itachi was surprised at the Toad Sage's perceptiveness and ability to connect the dots, but he didn't let it throw him off for more than a moment. "To be frank, I have no interest in something like the Chidori," Itachi said. "It is a technique for killing at melee range, and I find myself wanting to go in another direction." "And what direction is that?" Jiraiya asked. "I wish to develop my fighting style to be more long range," Itachi added. "Using genjutsu and other techniques to defeat opponents without killing them." That does change my plans a fair bit," Jiraiya said. "I've got no skill at genjutsu and I'm a bit of close-range bruiser myself." Itachi's eyes furrowed as he regarded the renowned shinobi. "Are you suggesting that you were hoping to teach me?" Nothing so formal, more like show a few tricks, Jiraiya said with a dismissive sweep of his hand. Sarutobi-sensei has high hopes for you and I was thinking that I might be able to help you along. Well then, you have my thanks, Itachi remarked. Jiraiya raised his hand. Hold on, the only reason I'm even thinking about this is the Sharingan. If you can utilize it to duplicate jutsu, it can speed up the process greatly, otherwise I'm not trying to go into that type of commitment. I can do that, Itachi stated. The only limits are that I have to be physically capable of doing the technique, so no Kekai Genkai or body modification I don't possess, and the technique has to have some physical motion that I can see. If it's too reliant on pure chakra control, then my Sharingan can't copy it. Okay, Jiraiya said. I think I've got a jutsu that will fit into the combat style you want to establish for yourself. What about it? Itachi nodded. I would be proud. We'll see if that lasts, Jiraiya responded before turning towards the rest of the group. Itachi and I will be working together, he said to Kakashi. The Anbu captain nodded, and then looked to Makoto. Are you okay working alongside Pakun? The Uchiha matriarch looked at the ninja hound and shrugged her shoulders. I don't see a problem with it. Alright then, Kakashi replied, drawing his chart out. If everyone can gather around, we can discuss our routes. With that, the team began to organize their mission, knowing full well its potential importance. Earth style. Dark swamp jutsu, Jiraiya shouted. Itachi used his Sharingan to see the ground churn and liquefy, swallowing a massive boulder in the clearing where the pair of leaf shinobi had stopped. I see, Itachi said, a comment that didn't do justice to the amount of detail that he had memorized in the hand signs and motions of the jutsu the Toad Sage had just shown him for the first time ever. It's a mid-range jutsu that's good for immobilizing a variety of targets, Jiraiya said. I've used it on lots of enemies, big summons, even a whole fortress once. It depends on how much chakra you use and your skill level. Itachi nodded, absorbing this information just as fast as his Sharingan had mastered the method itself. Thank you, Master Jiraiya. I believe this will make a great addition to my arsenal when I develop my earth style. That's good, Jiraiya replied, turning away with a satisfied grin. I'm telling you, the Sharingan makes this a little too easy, it's almost not worth the effort. What are you talking about? Itachi said. What? Jiraiya said, obviously not expecting to have to answer such a question. Oh well, he said, and stopped, leaning his hand on his chin and thinking. I suppose there's no challenge in teaching someone who gets it immediately, he said. There's no satisfaction in that. Itachi said, I see. And I gather that on a greater level, the Toad Sage continued, not having heard Itachi. Power that is won too readily leads to arrogance. Itachi was, once again, taken aback by Jiraiya's perceptiveness, and his ability to mask the breadth of his understanding in his day-to-day life. The Toad Sage had been right, of course, and his thesis explained a lot of what the Uchiha clan had become. Itachi himself, often gifted as he was, forgot that. Thanks, Itachi remarked. Oh, you're welcome, Jiraiya said, not understanding what Itachi was thanking him for. But the Uchiha clan head saw no need to put this into words, so he turned back to the real reason the pair were out here. Shall we go on to the next place? We will, Jiraiya said. Then the two began to make their way toward the next likely safe house site. Sasuke, the last bell rang. He packed up his stuff as if it were any other day, disregarding the plans he had made with Naruto. Hey, Sasuke, the blonde muttered at him, perhaps attempting to be discreet or secretive, though he wasn't doing that very well, considering the enthusiastic giggles and the fact he was doing this in the midst of the classroom. What? Said the Uchiha, irritated. Don't you remember what we talked about a while ago? Naruto asked back. Sasuke paused for a moment, recalling his earlier discussion with Naruto about finding methods to prank Sai. Yeah, I do, but let's not hear. Sasuke responded, seeking to provide a level of secrecy to their meeting that Naruto wasn't giving. He collected his belongings and walked out of the room, with his pal behind him. He guided them to a stairwell at the far end of the building, away from the major entrances that most of the students and staff were utilizing. So what did you find? Asked Sasuke. Even though they were obviously alone, Naruto looked over his shoulders conspiratorially. This, he said, pulling a book out of his backpack. Sasuke thought at first it was one of the many textbooks that all students had, but a brief inspection told him that this wasn't the case. He snatched it from Naruto, inspecting it carefully. This is hand-drawn, he observed, turning it in his hands, looking at the front and back covers. Where did you come by this? This is the only thing in Sai's locker that didn't come from the academy. I took it, Naruto said. Then it must mean something to him, Sasuke said, taking another look at the book. There are two boys, one on each cover, he remarked. Naruto pointed to one of the photographs. This one looks like Sai, he added. Sasuke too, when he saw the picture of the dark-haired boy, saw the similarities. The young Uchiha switched the book back to the other cover. He looked at a picture of a white-haired youngster and decided, this must be his sibling. How do you figure that? Naruto said. They don't look anything like each other. Sasuke scanned through the pages. The two boys looking at each other through them, but the paper became blank before they could get to each other. Because if I could draw like this, I would make something like this for Itachi, he replied. I got to give this back to Sai. What, and throw away the effort I put into getting this? Naruto screamed. Sasuke gave his friend a harsh eye. It's nothing compared to the effort Sai put into producing this. Besides, I know if I was working on gift like this for Itachi and it suddenly went missing, I would feel so horrible. The young Uchiha's remarks relaxed Naruto's stance. Okay, you win. We can take it back to him tomorrow. Itachi peered through his Sharingan at a deserted cabin, expecting to find something, anything, that the 3 previous tries had missed. He issued a defeated sigh. Don't feel so bad, Jiraiya instructed him, the kunai of the 4th Hokage in his palm. Well, we're narrowing down options and we know we're on to something. This is the 6th place we've scouted and he has a 50-50 hit rate for actually finding safe houses at them. Itachi commented. If the other teams are obtaining similar results, that's nearly 10 sites found, but we've neither seen nor heard of a combat between powerful shinobi. Not surprised, Jiraiya remarked. Minato was a very careful planner, he probably had dozens of places set up. We're looking for a needle in a haystack, we're doing it by hand. Toad Sage's analogy, Itachi nodded in accord, softly understanding the hardship of the undertaking. Yet he had to recognize the problem was one of grunt and guess labor, not a careful balance of clan and village interests to avert a civil war. At least as far as he could see. The gentle pitter-patter of something approaching Itachi and Jiraiya stopped his task. Any more thought on his task was stopped. The Uchiha glanced over his shoulder to see Pakun coming up to them. Well, it looks like you guys found another safe house, the ninja hound said, stopping. Yes, but we haven't found the evidence we need, Itachi said. Then you're going to like what I have to say, said Pakun. Makoto and I have uncovered something. We think everyone should see it. We are reuniting with the rest of the pack, and notifying Kakashi. What did you find? Itachi asked. One of our places had a destroyed building and Lady Makoto found it, Pakun added. We think it's possibly the proof we've been looking for, but we don't want to jump to any conclusions until we've got all the others. Jiraiya put his hand on Itachi's shoulder. Looks like we've found our needle, he remarked. Lead the way, he said to Pakun. The ninja hound nodded, spinning around. He started to run, Itachi and Jiraiya followed. Itachi felt like he was on the verge of something. Something important. Something monumental. It was only a question of getting there. Itachi stepped over the scattered mound of shattered rotten wood. His Sharingan searched the old debris, picking up tiny shards of smashed ninja tools. The Uchiha was sure this was one of the old safe dwellings of the 4th Hokage, not worn down by the passing years, but shattered by a flaming blast. With a blink, the Uchiha deactivated his Sharingan. He turned to see his mother crouching in the middle of the ruins, gripping a piece of wood. Found something? Itachi inquired. It's a piece of a crib, Makoto answered. This was meant for Naruto. Itachi wasn't startled by the concept of a crib being at this safe house. He and Jiraiya had found a handful at some of the other safe houses they had investigated. It seemed that Minato had many installed simply in case the birth got dangerous after the delivery, so he could leave Naruto someplace secure. Makoto took a deep breath, closing her fist around the piece of wood and holding it to her forehead. Is something wrong, mother? Itachi said with concern. I wish I had known. I wish I had done something, the Uchiha matriarch responded. It's unfair what Kushina went through, and it was unfair to Minato and Naruto too. I should have been there more. Itachi stayed mute, unsure what he should say in response to that. It wasn't her fault, he knew that, and he was sure that no one, least of all Naruto and his parents, blamed her. Yet he couldn't find a way to convey that in a way that seemed natural. So instead he did what he always did, and put his mind to the task at hand. He gave a short, reassuring pat on his mother's shoulder before stepping up to Jiraiya and Shisui. The two shinobi were standing over a spot of fractured ground, but enough time had passed that the grass was starting to grow over it. This was caused by Minato's Rasengan. He fought someone here, Jiraiya said. I'm sure of it. Shisui peered about, inspecting the years-old place. Are you sure about that? Master Jiraiya? Something definitely happened here, but for all we know it could have happened after the fourth passed. Call it a gut feeling, Jiraiya said. I don't mean to. Shisui began before Itachi stepped in and put his hand on his clansman's shoulder to stop him. This is likely the best we can hope for, Itachi stated. Besides, this location is so isolated that I doubt anybody but us has been here since the fourth. Ah, you're probably right, Shisui answered, nodding. What do you think, Kakashi? The Anbu captain had been off to the side, discussing with Pakun as the talking dog reported what the other hounds had discovered during the course of the search. He dismissed Pakun before turning to face his other shinobi. I've had my hounds continue to comb the surrounding areas while we converged and investigated here, he stated. They haven't found anything more, so I think Itachi's assessment is the correct one. Let's head home and tell Lord Hokage we've found as good of evidence as we can hope to find. Naruto took a couple steps forward, then a couple steps back, then a couple forward again, all the while nervously holding the stolen picture book in his hands. Sasuke laid his palm firmly on his friend's shoulder, stopping his circling course. Just go, he replied, referring to where Sai stood a short distance down the academy hallway they were standing in. Naruto gave a shaky nod before grasping the incomplete picture book in his hands and making the short walk to Sai. The stoic boy observed Naruto approaching him out of the corner of his eye. Do you need something? He said dispassionately. He didn't turn to face the blonde, such was the level of disinterest Sai had in him. Well, you see, Naruto replied, visibly nervous to acknowledge his fault. Here, he eventually blurted out, handing the book out to Sai. The dark-haired youngster gazed down at the book and in the space of a few seconds expressed more emotion than he had in his entire stay at the academy. Instantly his eyes went wide with disbelief, followed by terror as he hastily yanked open his locker and pawed about for something that was no longer there. Then there was rage as Sai turned back to Naruto, grabbed the book with one hand while using the other to angrily gesture at the blonde thief. How? He blurted out, unable to form a sentence in the deluge of emotions he was experiencing. Why? He began again before running into the same snag. It was at this point that Sasuke decided to step in. Naruto wanted to play a prank you, he explained. But first he wanted to learn more about you, so that he could come up with something that would really get at you. He stole that book because it was the only thing he could find that was actually yours. Sai went quiet, staring at the little book in his fingers. That's you and your brother, isn't it? Sasuke asked. Yes, Sai responded before realization lit up his eyes. But, how would you know that? Sasuke shrugged before delivering the best explanation he could give. I don't know. I just looked at it and that's what it felt like. I have an older brother, so I think I kind of understood what this was supposed to be at least a little. Sai nodded softly before he began to talk. He's not really my brother, he was an older kid at the same orphanage. But he always looked out for me, and at some point we just started calling each other brother. Well, we figured it probably meant a lot to you, so we decided to give it back, Naruto remarked. Sasuke could not help but note that his friend had mentioned, we, while Naruto was the one who had taken it and Sasuke was the one who insisted on returning it. But Sasuke chose to let it pass. So, the blonde began, leaning ever so little closer to Sai. When are you going to give it to your brother? Oh, that, Sai said. While Stoic Boy's previous display of emotion had been an explosion of expression, it was fleeting. Now though, it hung on his face for an extended duration, and this time it was sadness. That won't ever happen. Sasuke stared at the book, at the apparent effort that had gone into it. Why? He queried calmly, his voice steady in tone despite the emotions surging up within him. Sai glanced up at the Uchiha before returning his focus to the picture book. My brother is very sick, but we only found out after we left the orphanage. Or rather, the rest of us only found out then. He'd been keeping it a secret, didn't want me to worry. Well, I'm sure he'll get better soon, Naruto remarked with a smile. Sasuke could see that the expression was a charade put on for Sai's advantage. Sai shook his head. No, the doctors said that it's something that he might never recover from and that it will probably end up killing him. All the more reason to give it to him then, Naruto screamed, pointing violently. I bet he'd be super happy to get one last gift from you. Would he, or would he just consider it cruel? Sai said, his palm sliding to cover his troubled-looking face. I'm afraid these kinds of emotions escape me. All of a sudden Naruto grabbed Sai by the wrist and began dragging him down the hall. Where are we going? The stoic child asked with a coolness that belied his current circumstances. We're going straight to the hospital, Naruto proclaimed. You're going to give your gift to your brother, and he's going to love it. Sasuke blinked as he watched his pal drag the boy he had been dead intent on pranking down the corridor. He halted, realizing that Sai's locker had been left unlocked. After a moment's contemplation, he softly closed it. These findings are far from conclusive, the third Hokage said, glancing over the report that he had in front of him. However, I can't say that I was expecting undeniable proof considering the circumstances we find ourselves in. That was our conclusion as well, sir, Kakashi said for the squad. The remainder of them stood outside the Hokage's office, attentively listening for potential eavesdroppers even as they kept eyes on the debriefing. The Hokage nodded, sage-like, before sweeping the room and scrutinizing the gathering shinobi. While we will not reveal anything that we have discussed in this room to the public, those of us here as well as a few other selected individuals in the village hierarchy should act under the assumption that there was a human agent behind the Nine Tails attack, one that could fight on even footing with the fourth Hokage, Sarutobi stated. We do not have enough information to act, nor can we ascertain this villain's true identity, but that is better than the complete ignorance we operating under previously. What is our course of action now, Sarutobi-sensei? Jiraiya asked. The Hokage hesitated, reaching for his pipe, lighting it, and taking a single suck from it as he contemplated the matter. We do not have enough information to develop any concrete plan, but we can assume that this enemy is operating in the shadows, out of eyes of Shinobi world. If we also believe that he was involved in the plot of the Uchiha robes, we can assume that he is looking to operate through other agents. The others nodded, acknowledging the experienced Hokage's opinion. As such, we should remain vigilant against unusual activity on the part of other shinobi villages, or of new organizations rising to the fore, the Hokage said. That comment seemed to signify something Jiraiya, who went forward to speak. Actually, that reminds me of something, a group that might be what we're looking for. Something you've encountered on your travels? Sarutobi asked. I wouldn't say encountered, more heard whispers, but I've been meaning to talk to you about them for a while. A mercenary group calling themselves the Akutsuki, Jiraiya continued. Up until recently they were small time, taking on jobs in areas where no hidden village operates, but recently they've started to make more of a name for themselves. Bigger contracts, but more importantly they've started recruiting some big names. Rogue shinobi, infamous ones with real body counts, including our old friend Orochimaru. With that name now hanging in air, the atmosphere of the room transformed. Sarutobi grimaced at the mention of his old student, while the others tensed at the prospect of the rogue Sannin. Even Jiraiya, having mentioned it himself, appeared grimly resolved. I see, the Hokage murmured, putting his fingers together under his chin. Orochimaru's involvement alone would make this group worthy of investigation. But one such he would not agree to work with someone unless either he could use them, they had something of value to offer him, or they had such overwhelming power that not even he could stay out of their grasp. My thoughts exactly, Jiraiya said. So what is our next move? The question brought an idea to Itachi's head, something that on the surface appeared wild and crazy, but at the same time he could imagine himself doing it. I can infiltrate their organization, become a double agent, he said, going forward to confront the Hokage. Sarutobi glanced at the young Uchiha, analyzing him. I believe you would be capable of that, and I have no doubt your loyalty to the village would hold true, the sage-like village head observed. However, I believe your role in your clan is too important. We cannot risk the situation with the Uchiha becoming destabilized. I understand, Lord Hokage, Itachi said with a bow of his head. I apologize for my rash suggestion. Think nothing of it, and it is true that we should find some way to keep tabs on this Akutsuki, Sarutobi remarked. Kakashi, Jiraiya, I believe we should discuss options for Anbu surveillance at another time. Jiraiya and Kakashi both nodded, assenting to the Hokage's request. That will be all then, Sarutobi remarked, dismissed. The others began to migrate out of the Hokage's office, Itachi among them. As he reached the door, however, he saw that his mother wasn't. He peered over his shoulder to see Mikoto standing before Sarutobi's desk. Was there something else you wanted to discuss? The old leader said. Yes, Lord Hokage, there is, the Uchiha matron said. But to tell you the truth, it is more of a personal request. You guys didn't have to come with me, Sai stated as he, Naruto, and Sasuke stood outside of a hospital room. Maybe, but we want to, Naruto responded. Looking over his shoulder at the blonde, Sai asked a simple but important inquiry, but, why? Naruto and Sasuke exchanged looks before the latter spoke, because we're friends now. Is that all that you need? Sai inquired, wide-eyed. With matching grins Naruto and Sasuke slapped Sai on the back, directing him back towards what he was here for in the first place. The dark-haired boy shallowed his nerves and entered into the medical room. Ack, Shin coughed, drowning out his initial attempt to meet his adoptive brother. Oh, hey Sai. What are you here for? The former Root member could not have looked sicker lying in that hospital bed, however he still did his best to grin. Sai reached into his backpack for the book he had made, but got stuck on his emotions. He stood there with a lump in his throat, striving to think through all that he was feeling, his heart and thoughts. With a pat on the back he was brought back into the real world. Grinning a comforting smile, Naruto gave him a thumbs up. I've got something for you, Sai said, bringing the book out and placing it in Shin's lap. Picking it up and scrutinizing it, Shin went wide-eyed as he saw the art on the cover. Did you make this? He inquired. Sai nodded in answer. Flipping over the pages, Shin grinned as he took in what his little brother had made. What's this? He inquired as he reached the middle pages, still blank. Oh, I just have had a hard time figuring out what those final pages should be, Sai remarked. But, I think I have an idea now, the child remarked before diving into his school bag to get a set of pencils. May I? He asked once he was up on his feet, stretching his hand out for the book. Of course, Shin responded, smiling, and he handed the picture book back to his younger brother. With a nimble touch, Sai completed the illustration on the middle pages of the book. Sasuke and Naruto couldn't see anything from their location, but they knew all they needed to when Sai handed the book back to Shin. The young man on the hospital bed wept tears as he took in the completed artwork. Did I do something wrong? Sai said upon witnessing Shin's reaction. Wiping tears from his eyes, Shin smiled warmly at his adoptive brother. No, you did nothing wrong. I'm happier than you could possibly imagine. At this time Sasuke determined that there was no need for he and Naruto to involve themselves any further. So, with a tap on the shoulder and a jerk of his head, he softly ordered the blonde to follow him back out into the hallway. The pair of boys proceeded back to the hospital lobby, where they were astonished to discover Makoto Uchiha waiting for them. Mom, what are you doing here? Sasuke said. There you both are, the Uchiha matron stated as she stood from the chair she'd been waiting in. I went to pick you boys up from the academy, but Iruka-sensei told me what you were doing. I think it's wonderful that you're helping your classmate like that. Ah, geez, thanks Mrs. Uchiha, Naruto answered, bashfully looking at the floor. But there was something that was worrying Sasuke. Mom, you don't usually pick me up from the academy. Did something happen? Makoto grinned in that manner that only a mother could. I've got some great news. Naruto, the Hokage has given me permission to become your legal guardian. Legal guardian? Naruto echoed, unsure what that meant. It means that you can come live with us if you want, Makoto stated. For the second time that day, Sasuke observed a boy cry tears of pleasure as his mother embraced Naruto. Itachi sat on the roof of his family home, watching the lawn and expecting a rendezvous. He didn't have to wait for much longer, however, as Shisui appeared by his side. The senior Uchiha sat down next to Itachi before speaking. So what is this about? Shisui said. My mother has asked the Hokage if she may bring Naruto into our home, Itachi said. Shisui paused, taking a moment to comprehend this information. I'm surprised it took this long, he finally said. Really? Itachi remarked with amazement of his own. Absolutely, Shisui said. I thought it was pretty obvious that this was the direction your mother was going in. Oh, well, that's news to me, Itachi replied. Shisui smiled before giving out a chuckle. You can read a strategic situation like nobody's business, but we've got to work on your reading of people, my friend. You're probably right, Itachi confessed. Well, regardless of that, Shisui moved the subject ahead. I don't believe that you would call me here just to share that news. In the midst of their debate, Sasuke and Naruto approached the courtyard below the pair of teens. From what Itachi and Shisui could hear, the blonde was being shown his new house. The Hokage granted it, but with conditions, Itachi remarked. Who are they? Inquired Shisui. That we are to help Naruto grow as a shinobi. Itachi replied. With everything that's happened and the masked Madara threat, it's pretty obvious he'll be in a lot of danger if he doesn't learn to defend himself. I agree, Shisui nodded. Not to mention these Akutsuki of which Master Jiraiya spoke of. Yeah, it's obvious that having a tailed beast is no secret to be hidden, Itachi replied. There are people who will go after Jinchuriki for their own gain, and anyone who could seriously consider playing with that kind of power is going to be very dangerous. Now what? Shisui said. That, I don't know, said Itachi. Shisui looked at his pal from the corner of his eye. No plan. That is so not you, Itachi. I've never had to teach anyone before, Itachi noted. I've allowed Sasuke to watch me train at points, but I never bothered to teach him anything. And the Sharingan? What about the Sharingan? Shisui pressed as the other Uchiha trailed off. Sorry, it's just a conversation I had with Master Jiraiya recently, Itachi explained. The Sharingan makes it too easy to learn. I wonder if that also makes it hard to teach. Perhaps, but first, look below, Shisui said, pointing down to the garden below. Naruto and Sasuke were still down there and appeared to practicing the clone jutsu. They must have started to learn that at the academy, Itachi said. Sasuke exhibited a perfect clone jutsu to Naruto, a simple feat for two elite shinobi like Itachi and Shisui, but a remarkable accomplishment for an academy student as young as the boys were. Naruto attempted his own copy of the technique, and it was spectacular in the method and degree in which he failed. The two clones appeared like straw dummies put out on the ground in strange poses. They could never serve a useful purpose, not unless the enemy was so stunned by the ineptitude on display that they lost their concentration. That's not a normal way of failing that technique, Shisui noted. Itachi stared at his clansmen before giving Naruto's clones one final brief evaluation before they disappeared. Yeah, you're right. Normally, a student who fails the clone jutsu would either not make a clone at all or only have it last for a brief second. Those clones had substance, too much in fact. Almost like, you don't think that. That's exactly what I think, Shisui cut him off. I'm going to down for a closer look. Using his legendary body flicker technique, Shisui went fast down to ground level, arriving at the entryway leading back into the house so that he could pretend to have simply casually walked in on the scene. Hey, boys, he yelled out. Welcome to your new home, Naruto, I've heard the news. Thanks, Uncle Shisui, Naruto said, waving at him with a broad grin on his face. Shisui scowled for just a time, seeming to not like being called uncle. But he recomposed himself quickly enough. So, did I see you guys working on a technique when I came in? He inquired. Oh, yeah, the clone jutsu, Naruto said. I am, not very good at it. He put his hands behind his head and let out a laugh that sounded good-natured enough. Right, Shisui answered, plainly not finding the boy's laid-back confidence act convincing. How about you show me? Maybe I can see something that'll help you. Sure, Naruto responded before getting right into his technique. Much as before, it was a miserable flop. Making a big show of paying careful attention, Shisui watched with his palm at his chin and several nods. You know what, I think I might have something that can help you, he remarked. Just give me a chance to gather up some materials for you. Oh, all right, Uncle Shisui, Naruto responded. Let me know when it's ready. Will do, Naruto, Shisui answered. I'll leave you boys to it. He walked away, Naruto and Sasuke continuing to their old pursuits. Shisui stepped back inside, but before passing through the door he looked up at Itachi and beckoned for the clan chief to follow. Moving with all the stealth his enormous aptitude and expertise provided him, Itachi left his perch on the roof and moved out so that he could go in the home through the front entrance. Upon entering he discovered his mother in the kitchen alongside Shisui. Shisui filled me in, Makoto replied helpfully when Itachi entered the room. Did you notice? The body flicker ninja asked Itachi. Notice what? The clan leader questioned in return. Always remember, the power of our eyes lies in observation above all else, Shisui stated, pointing at his Sharingan-bearing organs. And we were right, Naruto is making his clones too concrete and I think I know why. Well, what is it? Makoto asked for both herself and her son. Shisui peered over his shoulder, checking to see whether the guys were within earshot. He's using too much chakra, it's making his clones more strong than the container the jutsu generates for them can manage. The way he sends out chakra, it's like he has more than he knows what to do with, but also like he can't properly cope in small amounts either. You suppose it is the tailed beast? Itachi murmured, not wanting Naruto to hear. Shisui nodded, silent for the same reason. Will this trouble him? Makoto asked, sounding like the concerned mother Naruto had never had. No, Shisui replied, quite the opposite. If anything, naturally deep chakra reserves are about the best natural advantage a shinobi can ask for, save for certain powerful Kekkei Genkai. But we shall have to have this in mind in his training. I wonder if this is a natural side effect of being a Jinchuriki, Itachi wondered. Maybe the body builds up its own chakra reserves to contain what is trapped within. Makoto shook her head, her beautiful black hair spilling in waves as she did. I don't think that's natural. Both Minato and Kushina had mastered sealing procedures. If they didn't want the Nine Tails chakra to interact with their son, they could have stopped it. So that was intentional? Shisui asked. Itachi's eyes widened as the realization hit him and he began to pace, putting the pieces together. Of course, if the fourth Hokage fought the masked Madara and wanted Naruto to be able to use the Nine Tails as a weapon against him, then he would design the seal to allow a small amount of the tailed beast's chakra to leak out. That way Naruto's body would acclimate to its power as he grew up. But that would cause Naruto's chakra network to develop in strange ways, Shisui said, catching up to his clansmen. Maybe that's why he throws out so much chakra for such a simple jutsu, his system just isn't used to dealing in small amounts. Ah, so he's a rich guy who wants to gamble but can't bring himself to care unless the stakes are big enough, Makoto offered. Then it seems we need to up the ante, Shisui observed. Itachi nodded in agreement with the rationale, but he couldn't say he saw the following step. But what would that look like, exactly? He said. Well, I think we should teach him the shadow clone jutsu, Shisui said. What? Makoto mumbled, more to keep herself from yelling than anything else. Do you have any clue how dangerous that would be for a youngster his age? Yes, for a normal child, Shisui allowed. But we both know you and I, he's not a regular boy. Makoto shook her head, then sighed in disappointment. Fine, but you're going to take it slow with him, and we're going to do this right. Go acquire permission from the Hokage to use the scroll of seals, do all the required paperwork. It'll take longer, but we have a few years before the lads will be ready to graduate from the academy anyway. Then we're agreed, Shisui said. Frankly, I think we're in for a few boring years anyway. It'll be good to take things slow while we're training the boys. The body flicker ninja smiled and chuckled before continuing. Though, a part of me wouldn't mind skipping ahead a bit to see the results. How do you do such a thing? Wondered Itachi.